Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. Marvel. Tech Prodigy, make your own wife at the start. Chapter 81. Miss 2B's movement speed has reached the point where it is difficult to see with the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of Hong Hulk, and the long sword in his hand turned into a silver beam that became bigger and bigger in General Ross's eyes. However, what surprised 2B was that at this moment, he saw Red Hulk stomping on the ground with his big feet, and the whole concrete floor stood upright, blocking him in front of him, trying to block Miss 2B's attack. Seeing such a scene, Miss 2B was full of disdain and did not stop at all. The long sword, as always, easily pierced the slate. The sky-defying power continued to surge forward, and the entire stone slab smashed heavily on Hong Hulk's body, with the tip of the sword like a spear hitting Hong Hulk's body heavily. Puff! The tough red muscles were punctured instantly, blood spurted out, and under the heavy blow of the slate, Red Hulk's body flew upside down and smashed under the ruins. Miss 2B stood there, blood dripping from the tip of the sword. The cold and ruthless long sword, and the graceful figure of Aruo, outlines a beautiful and desolate picture of a lady picking a sword. You have made progress than the first two, and you know how to use foreign objects to resist, but you are still too weak. It's boring, he said lightly, his fingers as slender as green onions clenched and twisted, the sword sounded, and the figure disappeared. When Miss 2B appeared again, she was already over the Red Hulk, and then fell fiercely. Gothic-style black high-heeled shoes, with their mighty power, stomped through the slate pressing on Red Hulk during Roar's whistling, and smashed heavily on Red Hulk's abdomen. PFF'd, wow! Blood and screams appeared at the same time. I saw that Hong Hulk, who had just said that he was going to kill Miss 2B, was now lying in the rubble like a dead dog. There was more air in and out less, and the body obviously suffered heavy damage. No hesitation, no respite for Red Hulk. The long sword in his hand turned into an afterimage and slid across Red Hulk's neck, doing what he had to do for a long time. As the long sword slid across, the newly transformed Red Hulk received the lunch. It takes less than a minute to transform from the beginning to the end of the dog leash. The speed was so fast that the surrounding group of witnesses were dumbfounded and terrified. Miss 2B, who was in the ruins, raised her originally lowered head slightly, revealing her slender and white neck. The breeze is blowing, the hair is flying, and under the moonlight, it is like a silver-haired witch, and it is beautiful. The beautiful face with coldness turned slightly, and his eyes looked at the group of soldiers, as if afraid that Miss 2B's long sword would also point at them, so Chi-Chi lowered her head and did not dare to look at her. The attitude is obvious, they are cowardly. Seeing this, Miss 2B had a disdainful smile on her face. Then, with good and enchanting steps, he walked leisurely in front of Natasha Romanoff. Now you can explain, if you think it is necessary. Hearing Miss 2B's words, a wry smile appeared on Natasha Romanoff's face. Her original purpose was to prevent this woman from clashing with the military represented by General Ross. And now that General Ross is dead, what she wants to say is meaningless. But although it doesn't make sense, the words still have to be brought to the fore. General Ross didn't know you were from Locke, that's why he dared to do that. So, if I'm not from Master Locke, I deserve it when he treats me like this. Miss 2B sneered. I didn't mean that, I just wanted to tell you that this was General Ross's personal behavior. Not the military is not the enemy of the Rockefellers, nor is S.H.I.E.L.D. Natasha Romanoff hesitation, and finally BACB decided to add and S.H.I.E.L.D. at the end. As the 8th level agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., how high-spirited she was before, and she would make fun of anyone who was unhappy. Now what? She felt like she was the leader of the S.H.I.E.L.D. apology team. During this period of time, I was either apologizing and admitting counsel, or on the way of apologizing and admitting counsel. This feeling is simple. Hearing Natasha Romanoff's words, Miss 2B looked at her with a half-smile. Whether it is an enemy or not, it's useless to just talk about it, we will judge for ourselves. But today, for the sake of your SHIELD's good attitude, the rest of these shrimp soldiers and crab generals, I can stay still, even if I give you a face. After all, Miss 2B put away the long sword in her hand and let it continue to float behind her. Give me face. Natasha Romanoff was stunned when she heard Miss 2B's words. She didn't expect the woman in front of her to say such a thing. What is he worth compared to the entire military and S.H.I.E.L.D.? The woman in front of him would actually be willing to sell herself a face, which seemed unbelievable to him. At this moment, the woman suddenly walked to her side, and put her mouth to her ear. "By the way, young master, let me ask you, is the tattoo on your lower back still there?" Miss 2B's soft voice sounded like thunder in Natasha Romanoff's ears. Immediately, Natasha Romanoff froze in place, feeling overwhelmed. She never imagined that he would tell his subordinates about her private affairs with that little fool. For a while, she didn't know how to answer at all, and her face flushed red. "Giggle, don't say anything, just keep it. It seems that the commander's sister is right. You are so wild. You are really a special woman, like your sister, you like that kind of tune, it's interesting. Hope you have a day of cooperation." After all, I can't wait for Natasha Romanoff to respond to what the cooperation in Miss 2B's mouth means. Miss 2B jumped and flew straight into the sky, disappearing without a trace. Looking at the back of Miss 2B, who disappeared in the blink of an eye, Natasha Romanoff clenched her fists and looked like she was gnashing her teeth. That little fool clearly promised me that as long as he came out, he would keep it a secret for me. He actually breached the contract, and I'm going to kill you. Imperial University. In a badly damaged laboratory, a man in a lab coat fell to the ground. There is a long wound on his forehead. At this moment, a green liquid dripped from the experiment and flowed into the wound on the man's forehead. With the inflow of green liquid, the man's head began to twist violently, and then swelled at a speed visible to the naked eye. In an instant, his head became as big as a basketball. A wicked smile appeared on his face, looking very strange. At this moment, a Dada footsteps approached slowly from outside. "Who?" The man frowned and looked out the door. "Dr. Stern, we meet again." A pleasant voice sounded. Suddenly, a woman wearing a black Gothic cloak appeared in front of him. This woman is none other than a female student named 2B who entered his classroom as an auditor a few days ago. 2B is just the name of Miss 2B's Dragon Kingdom. That's right. The woman who appears in front of Dr. Stern at this moment is not Miss 2B, who else could it be? After getting rid of Red Hulk, she started her second mission of the day. This task is simpler than the previous one: find the Hulk serum, bring it back to Dr. Stern, and that's it. Because of its simplicity, Miss 2B will do this task last. Seeing Miss 2B in front of her, Dr. Stern's face showed a hint of surprise. At this point in time, my own female student should not appear here. Now that she has appeared, it can only show that this woman is not ordinary. His eyes swept across Miss 2B's body, and the strengthened brain started to work quickly. With a long sword on his back, there are filaments of blood on the edge of the sword, mud under his feet, his clothes are also stained with mud, and his body is also accompanied by a faint smell of blood. This is obviously the appearance of the fierce battle just ended, combined with the terrifying sound of explosions that I heard outside. It is likely that this woman was one of the participants, as his heightened sense of smell picked up a tinge of Hulk and abomination on the woman's body. And now the fighting outside has stopped, and then this woman appeared in front of him. Combining all the information together, his brain that had been strengthened immediately analyzed the general situation. Immediately, a terrifying conclusion appeared in his heart, and the woman in front of him was probably a more terrifying existence than Hayden Hulk. As for whether it is or not, it remains for him to continue to investigate further. Immediately, a powerful spiritual force spread out from his body, and then enveloped Miss 2B in front of him. But what he didn't expect was that he couldn't sense anything. You must know that his brain has been strengthened to the extreme. He has mental power unimaginable to ordinary people, and he can temporarily invade other people's brains. But at this moment, he can't feel anything about this woman, which is unbelievable. Before he could figure out what was going on, the woman in front of him smiled coldly. Immediately, the figure flashed out, grabbed his neck at an unimaginable speed, and pressed it against the wall behind him. The terrifying impact cracked the wall behind him. Although he has been strengthened by Hulk serum, but what he strengthens is his own brain, and the strength of his physical body is no different from that of ordinary people, at most it is a little stronger. How could he bear the collision with Sister 2B, and a mouthful of blood immediately flowed from the corner of his mouth. The brain is as big as a basketball, the intelligence is extremely high, even 1,000 times higher than that of ordinary people, and with the telepathy ability, the description of you by the young master is really not bad at all. But there is one more thing I need to add to you, and that is life and death. Take care of your spiritual power, and next time, I will send you directly to hell. Miss 2B pinched Dr. Stern's neck and said coldly. I know. Dr. Stern looked at the woman in front of him with a terrified expression, his body trembling. Obviously frightened. The woman in front of him was, as he had analyzed, a more terrifying existence than Hulk hatred. It's just why his telepathy ability fails, he really doesn't understand. He knew there that Miss 2B in front of her was not a real human being. Rather, it is a general-purpose combat robot. In this way, his telepathy ability is naturally invalid. After being put down by 2B, Dr. Sten gasped in fear, looking at Miss 2B with fearful eyes. The woman in front of her is definitely not something she can offend. At least not yet. It's just the real identity of this woman, who is it? Seeming to see through his doubts, Miss 2B said lightly, all your doubts will be known to Master Locke. Master Locke. Hearing Miss 2B's words, Dr. Stern's face showed a hint of curiosity. Immediately, the smart brain worked quickly, combined with the strength of the woman in front of him, combined with some things that happened during this time. Immediately, he analyzed a remarkable answer. The young Master Locke mentioned by the woman in front of him is very likely to be the 14-year-old prince of the top Chable family of Rockefeller. The Rockefeller family, even a fool knows what a terrifying Chable family this is. Suddenly, when he looked at Miss 2B's eyes, his eyes lit up. The prince of a top Chable family sent such a terrifying guy to come looking for him. And it's still at this time, when my brain is receiving, strengthening. Obviously this is not easy. While he was still thinking about it, the woman in front of him spoke again. Take all the remaining Hulk serum you have here, the young master wants to see you. Okay. His heart was full of excitement, and he agreed without the slightest hesitation. The key point was that he did not dare to refuse. Unless he wants to die, he can only follow the woman in front of him obediently now. As a biologist at Imperial University, he had always felt underappreciated and buried. Maxima did not encounter Bull's pain, which made his life better than death. It is precisely because of this that he has always wanted to make some achievements for the world to see. Dr. Stern is very powerful. That's why he is obsessed with studying Hulk serum. Now he not only succeeded, but also attracted the attention of the Rockefeller family. This can't help but give him a feeling that no one has asked him for 10 years, and he has become famous all over the world. A sense of accomplishment, a full sense of accomplishment made him feel extremely happy. After quickly packing up, he came to the front of Miss 2B. I have already packed up. All the materials are here, we can leave. Dr. Stern said with a look of anticipation. Seeing his anxious look, Miss 2B was a little stunned. This guy doesn't seem to be nostalgic here at all, not afraid at all, on the contrary, he is looking forward to it, feeling that he is more anxious to see her young master than she is. Does this guy have any special hobbies? Does he also have ideas for the young master? 2B couldn't help thinking silently in his heart. If it really is what she thinks, then this guy must not stay, and must be removed immediately, and he must not let him poison his beloved young master. If Dr. Stern knew, it was because he was too cooperative. In this short period of time, Miss 2B in front of her had murderous intentions towards him, and she didn't know how she would feel. Probably will be wronged to death. What a special hobby. I'm just happy for someone to find me. I finally want to be famous all over the world. Glancing coldly at Dr. Stern in front of him, he suddenly felt that this big head was so annoying. As soon as his mind moved, the anti-gravity auxiliary robot suspended beside him immediately shot a hot flame towards the laboratory. Suddenly, the laboratory where Dr. Stern stayed for more than 10 years was swallowed up by the fire. Looking at the destroyed laboratory, Dr. Stern did not feel sorry for it, but was very excited. As the saying goes, the old does not go, and the new does not come. This means that he is reborn from the ashes, and his new life is about to begin. Not only that, but he looked curiously at the anti-gravity assistant robot beside Miss 2B, his eyes full of curiosity. His brain was strengthened by Hulk serum, not only his intelligence was rapidly improved. His thirst for knowledge is also far beyond ordinary people, and he is extremely curious about any unknown things, and he wants to understand its principles. Miss 2B, is the thing floating around you anti-gravity? Is it a drone? Dr. Stern, who couldn't help but be curious, asked. Yeah, Miss 2B nodded and said without interest. It's really amazing. Anti-gravity is a profound knowledge. I also wanted to study physics before, so that I can study anti-gravity. But I prefer biology, so I finally chose biology major. By the way, the manufacture of Hulk serum belongs to the category of biology. Dr. Stern seemed to have opened the chat box, and kept talking behind Miss 2B, the whole chatter. At this moment, Miss 2B is thinking about how to ask the young master for a reward when she goes home, and how can she be in the mood to listen to Dr. Stern BB. Listening to Dr. Stern's endless chatter behind him, a sense of irritability suddenly appeared, and a nameless fire came up. You uncle. Miss 2B was so angry that she turned around and hit Dr. Stern hard in the face. What kind of strength is Miss 2B, although she has tried her best to control her strength? But with a slap, Dr. Stern's fan was still flying, and he spun 3.5 times off the ground and landed on the ground with a steady face. Rating: 9 points. 1 point less as for fear of Dr. Stern's pride. Dr. Stern, who was slapped in the face, immediately fainted, with a confused expression on his fainted face. Obviously, at the moment he was beaten, he didn't even know what heinous crime he had committed, and the woman in front of him was going to treat him like this. But he was afraid he would never know the answer. If you have to get to the bottom of the reason, it is because he is too ugly. For Miss 2B, only his handsome young master is qualified to chat with her. In this way, not only will she not be irritable, but she will also take the initiative to find topics and cater to each other. Just like helping the young master with homework, if the young master feels that speaking with her mouth is not enough, she will also use her body to demonstrate. After all, Locke is his most beloved young master, so he should teach by words and deeds. It's definitely better to take the initiative yourself. As for Dr. Stern, what kind of thing is he worthy of chatting with himself? The key point is that at this time, Miss 2B is thinking about the issue of rewards, and she is even less in the mood. Today, she completed a total of 2 tasks and deserved to be rewarded twice. And because one more Red Hulk was killed, she thought it would be no problem for her to ask for one more reward. So, going back today is a total of 3 rewards. What clothes should I wear to receive the 3 awards? Professional OL, teacher outfit, nurse outfit, or something else? It's so nerve-wracking. Standing beside Dr. Stern, who had passed out, Miss 2B muttered to herself with a tangled face, completely ignoring Dr. Stern on the ground. In the end, she finally decided on the clothes to receive the award, and a charming smile appeared on her face. Glancing at Dr. Stern on the ground, he grabbed his feet in disgust. Take a leap, fly into the sky, and then head towards the Rockefeller Manor at a high speed. Dr. Stern woke up once in midair, but before he could scream, he was knocked unconscious by 2B's slap. I didn't wake up until I got back to Rockefeller Manor. Rockefeller Manor. Locke looked at Dr. Stern, who was swollen like a pig's head with sympathy. His head had already been mutated into a basketball by the Hulk serum. Now she was slapped twice by Miss 2B, her whole face was swollen, and she looked even more round, which was very funny. Shaking his head, Locke's eyes moved to Miss 2B. This is how you treat our future new partners. Who made him talk so much nonsense and talk to me about physics and biology? Is this what he can talk about? I only want to talk to you, master. Miss 2B pouted. Do you understand the physics and biology of a hammer? Locke said, looking at Miss 2B speechlessly. Young master, don't you look down on people, I really understand. For example, the interaction of forces mentioned in physics, master, the more force you use, the more force I will bounce back. Also in biology, there is a question about the time law of biological estrus. And there's, your uncle, stop now. Is this what you can say? You are a girl, what are you thinking about? Locke was speechless, and hurriedly stopped 2B, who wanted to continue. He was afraid that if 2B said it again, he would faint out of anger, and what kind of thing had he built? Looking at Master Locke and Sister 2B, who were like unjust lovers, the commander beside him covered his mouth and laughed lightly. Then brought 2 cups of healthy fruit tea to them. Wow, it's Master's favorite fruit tea. Master, you can drink more. Miss 2B raised her eyebrows looking at Locke. Quote, when is your favorite time to drink this healthy wolfberry tea? His thoughts turned, and he suddenly thought of that dark and windy night. That's all, this tea is really good. It mainly protects the body and waist, which is very suitable for him now. Wake him up. Locke glanced at Dr. Stern on the ground and said, yes. Upon hearing Locke's words, Miss 2B directly poured the fruit tea in her hand onto Dr. Stern's face. Suddenly, Dr. Stern, who was still fainting, moved slightly, and then slowly opened his eyes. Looking at the unfamiliar environment around him, and seeing Miss 2B standing in front of him, he screamed as if he had seen a ghost. Obviously, Miss 2B's 2 slaps just now left a lot of psychological shadows on him. You're a ghost, don't hurry up and shut up when you see my young master. This time, Miss 2B did not continue to stun Dr. Stern. Instead, he picked him up and made him stand straight in front of Locke. That's how Locke's first meeting with Dr. Stern began. Not being as rude as Miss 2B, Locke smiled lightly and gestured to the sofa beside him. Seeing this, Dr. Sten, who was still a little confused, immediately sat down obediently. Because he was strengthened by the sensitive inducing, he sensed the man in front of him in an instant, and he was an existence that was no less dangerous than that woman. And the sense of threat that woman gave him came from her terrifying fighting power. But the young man in front of him was completely different. It was a threat to him from the depths of his soul. This is a deeper horror. Don't think about this guy, he should be Master Locke in women's mouth. Dr. Stern, when we meet for the first time, let me introduce myself first. My name is Locke. Locke smiled and sat down opposite Dr. Stern. One leg rests lightly on the other leg, and both hands are flat on the sofa, sitting slightly lazily. Generally, this sitting position occurs only when it is extremely secure and relaxed. Looking at her slightly raised calf, Miss 2B immediately knelt down beside Locke and tapped lightly with both hands. Behind Locke, the commander's elder sister's hands did not stop, dancing on Locke's shoulders as usual. Obviously, Locke is very relaxed at the moment. At least compared to Dr. Stern, who was sitting in front of him. Dr. Stern's eyes were full of envy when he looked at Locke, who was served by 2 stunning beauties, Miss 2B and the commander. Isn't this kind of happiness what all men dream of? But other men can only think about it in dreams, but 14-year-old Locke has already realized it. If so, how could he not be envious? Seemingly seeing the envy of Dr. Stern, Locke waved to Miss 2B and Sister Commander. Immediately, the 2 of them understood, very obediently stopped their movements, and stepped aside. The purpose of looking for you, you must have already guessed it, so I won't repeat it because. Just to say, I'm here for food and lodging, a place to study and everything you need. And you just need to give me the research results, and then I will make you famous. Is there a problem? Locke said blankly looking at Dr. Stern in front of him. In his plans, Dr. Stern was the guy he had to keep in his pocket. Because this guy has a great title in the future, called the Big Boss, and is a villain with an extremely good IQ. In terms of IQ alone, even Tony Stark can't compare to it. Such a high IQ criminal once gave Marvel's superhero a headache. And the more the guy who gave superhero a headache, the more interested Locke was, because it also showed his strength. His subordinates do not raise waste, and Dr. Stern just meets this condition. If he joins, many of his later scientific research can be handed over to Dr. Stern. And his hands-off shopkeeper can be more relaxed. This is his purpose, very simple and direct. However, this kind of high IQ character is a double-edged sword. If you use it well, you will benefit greatly. If you don't use it properly, it will become a time bomb buried around you. There is a risk of explosion at any time, so he needs to establish a complete monitoring system for it. Definitely, this is what needs to be done after Dr. Stern agrees to join. If he does not agree, there is only one word waiting for him, death. Looking at the 14-year-old genius boy in front of him, a touch of hesitation appeared on Dr. Stern's face. The smart brain quickly analyzed the pros and cons, and after a while, as if he had figured it out, he nodded. No problem, I'm willing to join. Very good. Locke smiled with satisfaction, and gave a wink to the commander's elder sister beside him. The commander's elder sister gestured, nodded, and placed a ring-like thing in front of Dr. Stern with ease. In my place, you only need to do your duty to do scientific research. I don't want to see your telepathy ability appear here. This stuff will keep your telepathy ability from overflowing, so bring it on. It's good for everyone, Locke said meaningfully, looking at Dr. Stern. Hearing Locke's words, Dr. Stern showed a wry smile, although he had already guessed that the young man in front of him was not simple. But when he saw the ring in front of him, he was still shocked. Even the equipment to restrain himself has been prepared in advance, and it seems that he cannot escape from the palm of the young man in front of him. But it's okay, let's take one step at a time. Thinking too much is not his style. And he is really only interested in scientific research. If this guy in front of him can really provide him with a perfect place, so that he can be completely silent in scientific research, he himself would not want to leave, because for him, this is heaven. He was very obedient and put the ring on. It was very light and had no burden at all. He tried to use the telepathy ability, and sure enough, the ability was imprisoned. He couldn't help but wonder to himself that he was able to create such a high-tech thing. Obviously, the young master in front of him has far surpassed him in the field of science and technology. This can't help but make him have the idea of staying. With such a talented young master as the boss, he himself may be able to grow faster. Lao Mo was called in. Master, are you looking for me? Lao Mo stood in front of Locke respectfully and asked curiously. Locke nodded and said, "This is a new member of our team, Dr. Stern. You will take him to our new base tomorrow, and you can leave him to handle some scientific and technological research matters. By the way, any information about him from the outside world will be dealt with by him." Understood. Lao Mo nodded and left with the big boss. After getting the big boss, Locke's eyes couldn't help moving to the Hulk serum on the table. Half of the reason he was struggling so much was because of the bottles of green Hulk serum in front of him. The effect of this thing is more powerful than the genuine super soldier potion. The upper limit is beyond the enhanced super soldier serum created by Locke. It's just that the side effects are too great. After injection, there is a very high chance that the body will mutate and become a hideous monster. This has been verified by Abomination, Red Hulk, Dr. Stern. All injectors were physically mutated and turned into ugly monsters. Although Locke wanted to continue strengthening his own body, if the price was to become an ugly monster, he would definitely not be able to accept it. Let alone him, his two wives to-be and the commander probably couldn't accept it either. So he needs to improve the Hulk serum to achieve his ideal state. With this thought, Locke's consciousness entered the system directly. Host: Locke, Technology World, Neo Mechanical Age. Points: 60. He was rewarded with 60 points by the system for participating in the big event of the Hulk vs. Abomination. Not a lot of points, but not a lot. 100 points can draw a technology world, which means that as long as there is another big event, he can draw another lottery. But this time Locke entered the system not to draw a lottery, but to do strengthening analysis. As mentioned before, the function of the system integral is not as simple as he imagined. In addition to the points used to extract a new technological world or a single technological knowledge, it can also be directly exchanged for the world of science and technology, or a single technology knowledge, but the points required for direct exchange are astronomical. 0. It is almost impossible for Locke to use this function, except for the above. In fact, there is another function, which is to carry out strengthening analysis on the existing scientific and technological products, and then give a strengthening plan. Definitely, the system cannot directly strengthen the existing world science and technology products, but can only give direction and ideas, provide theoretical basis, and provide reference for the host. Whether the strengthening can be successful depends on the host's own efforts. It has to be said that this system is completely a learning hegemony system, which is to force the host to constantly study and research, and then grow into a technological hegemon. However, Locke has long been used to this. Although he cannot strengthen directly, it is good to be able to give a strengthening plan. This kind of feeling is like when you encounter problems when you are doing questions, and then there is a teacher around to give guidance. It is the same reason. Although it won't tell you the answer directly, but can tell you the idea, this is the same as telling the answer to the scholar. And it really does make progress faster. Whether to carry out strengthening analysis. The required points are 50 points. Yes. Looking at the system's prompt, Locke shook his head and smiled bitterly. The 60 points he just rewarded went straight back to before liberation. But if you can get a satisfactory reinforcement plan, it's not bad. Strengthening analysis is in progress, the existing scientific and technological product, Hulk Serum. Evaluation. C-level scientific and technological products. Effect. Greatly strengthens the body ability, but the side effects are obvious. The body mutation rate is 90%, and the transformation uncontrollable rate is 100%. Optimal strengthening direction. To upgrade to B+ level technology. Strengthening Scheme 1. The way of stability, sacrificing the strengthening effect, reducing the mutation rate to 10%. Assessment, C-level scientific and technological level. Strengthening Scheme 2. The way of the mean, reduce the strengthening effect to 50%, reduce the body mutation rate to 50%, and transform the uncontrollable rate to 100%. Assessment, B-level technology level. Strengthening Plan 3. The way of madness, madness potion, the strengthening effect is increased by 1000%, the body mutation rate is increased to 100%, but the transformation control rate is 100%. Assessment, B+ level technology level. Looking at the 3 strengthening schemes given by the system, Locke was stunned. There are actually 3 2.1, each with its own advantages and disadvantages, and people with different personalities make personalized choices. The way of stability, although it will not mutate in shape, but reduces the strengthening effect, which is equivalent to no effect for me who injected the enhanced super soldier serum. The way of the mean may improve me, but there is still a chance of body mutation. Once it changes, it means a big loss. So, the only one that suits me is the last one, B+ level technology level, Mad God Potion. The strengthening effect is increased by 10 times, but there will be physical changes, but the transformation is controllable, you can change if you want, and you can restore your human form. You don't need to choose, it's just a potion of madness. Locke muttered to himself, and he already had a decision in his heart. The strengthening plan, choose Plan 3, the Mad God Medicine. Because only this medicine can help him, as for the body mutation, he can control it himself anyway. If it's too ugly, you can choose not to change yourself. That's not a problem anymore. With this idea in mind, Locke immediately exchanged the theoretical basis for strengthening Scheme 3, and immediately entered the experimental base to start his latest round of research. I believe that it won't be long before a more powerful Locke will appear. In half a month, relying on the theoretical basis provided by the system, it took Locke a full half a month to create the Mad God Potion he wanted. The main reason why it took so long is that the materials needed for strengthening Hulk Serum are too rare. Some substances do not exist on Earth at all, but need to be found in outer space. Rao is a family like Locke, and in the end he only found a little bit. That extremely rare element was extracted from a space meteorite that fell to Earth many years ago. So even Locke is currently only enough to build once. At the beginning, he had to give up his plan to mass produce this potion. The bottle of Mad God Potion in front of him at this moment is the only exclusive edition provided to him. Master, this is the Mad God Potion that you spent tens of billions and half a month to create. The commander's elder sister looked curiously at the bottle of golden yellow medicine in front of her, her eyes wandering, full of doubts. This thing looks very different from the previous Hulk Serum. But whether it can really achieve the kind of effect that Locke said, she is skeptical. After all, Master Locke said that the strengthening effect of this thing can be 10 times stronger than Hulk Serum. If this is true, then once the strengthening is successful, the realm that her young master's physical strength can reach will be unimaginable. It may be an exaggeration to say that the body is sanctified, but it can definitely make it the pinnacle of the pyramids of this planet's biological chain. If it really reaches that point, isn't that the young master's waste strength? Thinking of this, her face couldn't help but get hot, and there was a faint expectation in her heart. Maybe it's time for your body to get strengthening 10, or you may not be able to achieve a perfect fit. The commander's eldest sister thought so. Crazy God Potion. How crazy. At this moment, Miss 2B came to Locke's side with enchanting steps and smiled charmingly. I don't know, but once this thing is injected, my body will definitely mutate, and it may become a terrifying monster. Locke said with some hesitation. Although the system has clearly told him that the transformation of the Mad God Potion is controllable. But when he really planned to inject it into his body, he was still a little worried. After all, no one wants to be a monster. But you can't have both, and Locke is very clear about this. What? It will definitely mutate. Young master, are you saying that after the injection of the Mad God's potion, you will also become an ugly monster like Hulk? Hearing Locke's words, the faces of Miss 2B and the commander's sister showed surprise. Obviously, they didn't know this before. This is also what Locke didn't say on purpose. He knew very well what his two wives thought. If he had told them in advance that he would not live in peace in the past half-month, they would definitely stop him. Because according to the robot code regulations, they must be solely responsible for their own safety. He can't let himself be threatened in any way, not even by himself. However, Locke has secretly rewritten the rule in the past few days, adding a new rule with the most power. That is, all rules and regulations can be terminated or opened by the creator at any time. That is to say, from today onwards, what he said was the biggest. He said it would be fine, even if it was the basic rules and regulations, it had to fall behind. In this way, he had a showdown with his two wives. Yes, 100% will mutate, but the state of transformation can be controlled at will, so you two don't have to worry too much. Locke nodded and said, even if it's controllable, it's still too dangerous. What if you don't look like a human being? The commander's elder sister said firmly. That's right, young master, if you become impersonal, what will you do with your homework? What about me and the commander's sister? We must protect your body from any threat. I beg you not to do this, or we will be rude. Miss 2B also said with a serious face. Hearing the concern of the two file-size wives, Locke nodded very usefully. As expected of the robot wife I built myself, she just cares about people, but now the arrow is on the line and I have to send it. Temporarily abolish the robot guidelines, the two of you can now dispense with them. The Mad God potion was carefully developed by myself, and I have absolute confidence, so you two don't have to worry. Taking 10,000 steps back, even if I change into an inhuman form in the end, as long as I don't change my form, it's fine. But I personally feel that I should not be so unlucky. What if the direction of the mutation is good? Wouldn't it be beautiful to become bigger and stronger? At that time, not only will I benefit, but you two ladies will directly benefit from it. How? When I say this, are you excited? Locke raised his eyebrows and said mockingly. Hearing Locke's words, the faces of Miss 2B and the commander immediately turned extremely red. Young master, what are you talking about? Do you think we look like that kind of woman? The commander's elder sister blushed and said in a sullen voice. You two are too embarrassed to use interrogative sentences. Are you embarrassed to use the word, like? Think about last night. Locke glanced at the commander's elder sister and said. Hearing Locke's words, the commander's elder sister bowed her head in embarrassment and said nothing. On the other hand, Miss 2B had a look of anticipation in her beautiful eyes, looking straight at Locke. Master, is it true? After the injection, what will really change? Quote, you didn't say just now that you must protect my body from any threat to young master. Otherwise, you will be rude to me, why don't you tell me now? Locke looked at Miss 2B speechlessly. Didn't you temporarily cancel the rules and regulations yourself, blame me? Besides, young master, didn't you say that you have absolute confidence? I believe you will mutate in a good direction. Come on. Miss 2B clenched her fists and looked like she was cheering. Add your sister's oil. As long as the young master can succeed, I can add any amount of my sister's oil you want. Hearing Miss 2B's words, Locke was unable to complain. What kind of thing have you built yourself? 2B is really helpless. Without further bickering with 2B, Locke turned his gaze to the Mad God potion in front of him. He picked it up gently, took a deep breath, and walked into the experimental cabin. Then, without hesitation, he plunged it into his left arm. With the injection of a whole tube of medicine, Locke's complexion suddenly changed, becoming abnormally hideous. Looking at Locke, whose complexion suddenly changed in pain, Miss 2B and the commander's elder sister looked at the physical sign monitor on the experimental cabin with worry. Although Miss 2B said that, it was just her joke. When she really saw that Locke poured the madness potion into her body without hesitation, her heart was still completely twitched, and it was about to reach her throat. The elder sister of the commander on one side also felt the same way. Locke, as their creator, their only love, they didn't want Locke to have an accident anyway. The vital signs system is being dynamically monitored in real time. The subject's vital signs fluctuated dramatically, and the body temperature rose rapidly, 37 degrees, 50 degrees, 1000 degrees, 2000 degrees, 3000 degrees. Warning, warning, the subject's body temperature is too high, and the energy load of the superalloy experimental cabin has been exceeded, and the experimental cabin is melting. Please evacuate the surrounding life immediately, evacuate immediately. The sudden warning message from the experimental cabin immediately shocked Miss 2B and Miss Commander. They never imagined that Locke's body temperature would soar to such a level after the injection of the Mad God potion. More than 3000 degrees, it is still constantly rising. What is the concept of a high temperature of 3000 degrees? You must know that the temperature of the surface of the sun is only 5500 degrees. That is to say, in an instant, their young master Locke may explode with a temperature no less than the surface of the sun. Fortunately, he is in a high temperature resistant experimental cabin at the moment. If he is outside, the entire experimental base where is located will be vaporized and turned into ruins in an instant. And the two of them will definitely not have a good end, and the slag that will also be burned will not be left. What a terrifying temperature! What has the young master mutated into? How can such a terrifying temperature be released? Miss 2B covered her entire body with vibranium armor and turned on the phase transfer energy barrier. She was shocked while flying backwards at a very high speed. Although the commander's eldest sister did not have the vibranium armor, she also opened the protective shield and quickly escaped from here. However, the things they were worried about did not appear. At this moment, the temperature that had been rising rapidly dropped again. The body temperature began to drop, returned to normal, the mutation was completed, the strengthening was completed, and the strengthening rate was 1000%. A series of electronic alarms sounded continuously in the laboratory, and finally, the strengthening was successfully completed with a strengthening rate of 1000%. When the last electronic alarm was over, the entire laboratory fell into silence, and both Miss 2B and the commander could hear their heartbeats. Their eyes were fixed on the experimental warehouse. At this moment, the severely shape-shifted iron door of the experimental cabin, which had been melted by the high temperature, was blasted open from the inside with a bang. Immediately, a handsome man with a naked body, more than 2 meters tall, and his hair fluttering like flames appeared in front of Miss 2B and the commander. This man is none other than Locke, who has been extremely strengthened by the madness potion. At the moment, Locke's height has soared to 2 meters, but his muscles are still streamlined. Although it looks much stronger than before, it still feels full of beauty. Now his image has the evil charm of Yashinon, and the violent domineering of Kaiba Yekai. Obviously, his mutation direction is really good. Is this the mad god? What a crazy feeling. Locke clenched his fists, and a wicked smile appeared on his face. Looking at Locke, who had a completely different image, Miss 2B and Big Commander both looked suspicious and approached slowly from a distance. The fiery red hair seems to have lost gravity, dancing upwards, with a tall body of more than 2 meters, strong arms, and 8 streamlined muscles in the abdomen. Immediately, Miss 2B and Big Sister Commander breathed a sigh of relief at the same time, and their hearts were shocked. Is this the young master who has been strengthened by the Mad God's potion? This is too scary. Master, how do you feel? Miss 2B looked away with difficulty, and then landed on Locke's stern face. One word, cool. Locke smiled lightly, clenched his fists tightly again, roared loudly, and the air exploded in his palms. Right now, he really felt that a punch could shatter a mountain, and the strength was beyond his own ability to measure. But it is definitely several times stronger than the regular Hulk, and even in the face of the open Hulk, it is estimated that it can match it. For him, Hulk has become a unit of measurement, and it has no other use. Applying the power division of the Marvel world, even if the current Locke has not reached the level Godfather, he is already very close. After all, his current body is a monster that can easily release a high temperature of 6000 degrees. Yes, the Mad God potion not only strengthened his physical body, but also mutated his cells. Thus, it has the terrifying ability to release the temperature exceeding the surface of the sun. Today, he is already an uncompromising god to humans. But if he was placed in the vast Marvel universe, this ability would be nothing. Not to mention the vast universe, just on this planet alone, there are peerless powerhouses such as Ancient One, a level god-father. On a slightly larger scale, among the Asgards of the 9 realms, the god King Odin was enough to threaten him with huge amounts of money. After all, that is a veritable god king, and his power of Odin can be converted into any form and used. You can temporarily enhance your physical attributes to reach the full level, or endow living or non-living forms with various super abilities. It can also emit energy, alter reality, create or resurrect life, decompose or repair objects, open dimensional channels, cast spells and blessings, and more. Combining all these, it is enough to see how terrifying the Odin of level God Father is. It is no wonder that while Odin was still alive, Comrade Thanos, the director of the family planning office, had to retreat. Because Rao is Thanos when he meets Odin, he will also be hammered out of shit. Therefore, the current Locke said that it is strong, but it has not yet reached the point where it is arrogant. His road to becoming stronger still has a long way to go. However, although it can't be compared with the super strong of level Godfather, if it is only placed on this planet. As long as the Ancient One doesn't come out, then he is the only existence standing at the top of the human pyramids. Master, what happened to the terrifying high temperature just now? Is it also caused by your mutation? The commander's elder sister looked at Locke curiously and said. Like Miss 2B, her eyes are also very difficult to look away from the unspeakable. Is this what you're talking about? Locke raised his finger, and a fiery red energy condensed at his fingertips. This energy looks like a flame but is not a flame. It cannot be described by a special adjective. It can only be said to be a hot energy that is far more terrifying than a flame. Looking at the terrifying energy of Locke's fingertips, Miss 2B and Commander took a step back subconsciously. Although the high temperature energy was only the size of a fingernail, the terrifying heat released still burned their clothes in an instant. The two slapped the clothes on their bodies in horror, but it was still a step too late, and the clothes on their bodies turned into ashes and disappeared. If their bodies had not gone through strengthening, they would have burned at this moment. Rao was Locke controlling the temperature of the energy within a certain range, or did the two of them have to turn on the phase shift energy shield to resist? However, the energy cover is transparent, it can block the invasion of high temperature energy, but it cannot block the beautiful style of the two of them. Suddenly, the infinitely beautiful scenery was exposed under Locke's eyes. Just hear the sound of King. Miss 2B and the commander took a deep breath again, their faces full of horror. Master, promise me, please don't transform unless necessary. The commander's elder sister's face was flushed, like a charcoal fire. Yeah, young master, hurry up and take your supernatural powers. Change back to a normal person. Miss 2B also said with a hot face, her face no longer expected, but full of fear. Seeing how frightened the two ladies were, Locke smiled. With a wave of his hand, the high temperature energy in his hand directly hit the experimental cabin behind him. The experimental cabin that can withstand thousands of degrees of high temperature baking cannot help but be easily penetrated by Locke's extreme high temperature energy at this moment, leaving a hole with a thick thumb. Seeing such a scene, Miss 2B and the commander were shocked again, if such an attack were to hit them. Even if the energy barrier is turned on, it is estimated that it will be difficult to resist. For Locke at the moment, they can only use one word to describe it, that is pervert. Either way, it's the same. Hearing the words of the two ladies, Locke did not retreat. Instead, he removed his ability to control high temperature energy, and then looked at Miss 2B with a smile. Why, are you afraid? Didn't you just say that you wanted me to become stronger, and now I have become stronger? But you are afraid, my robot wife, you have disappointed me. Locke said with a half-smile. Hearing Locke's words, Miss 2B's face was filled with helplessness, and she gave Locke a speechless look. I secretly thought in my heart that this young lady wants you to become stronger, not a pervert. Now that you look like this, everyone will be afraid. Master, compared to your disappointment, I don't want to die, so please forgive me. I'm really convinced, and I'm convinced. Miss 2B said for the first time. However, Locke smiled and joked. I haven't played before, how do you know if you're real or fake? What, Master, I don't think it's necessary. I admit defeat. Really, Miss 2B said in horror. I mean let you punch at me, I want to confirm how strong I am. Locke squeezed his fist and looked at Miss 2B with a playful expression. Remember to use all your strength, otherwise I'm afraid I'll be unhappy. Locke explained. Use all your strength. Young master, are you serious? Although you are indeed terrifying after your transformation, Miss Ben's strength is no joke. Miss 2B said confidently. Hee, let's see who is stronger and who is weaker. Do you want to fight? I'm happy to accompany you. Miss 2B said, her figure flashed, and she appeared directly in front of Locke. The black fist wrapped in the vibranium armor swept the terrifying wind towards Locke. Seeing this, Locke smiled lightly, raised his right hand quickly, and actually held Miss 2B's fist directly. Boom! There was a loud noise, and a terrifying explosion sounded from the collision between the fist and the palm. The wind blew against his face, rattling his red hair. But Locke stood motionless, and this scene seemed familiar. Wasn't that the case when hatred attacked her in the first place? How can that be? Could it be that the strength gap between yourself and the young master has been so widened now? Backquote, you said that you have used all your strength, with such power as you, did you not eat? Locke looked at 2B's wife lightly and said, with joking and ridicule. How could Miss 2B ever suffer such humiliation? Her body twisted in midair, her beautiful legs as white as jade continued to kick heavily towards Locke. But the result was still the same, and it was easily caught by Locke. I saw the other hand quickly crossed Miss 2B's jade legs, came to the mountain, and took pictures. Crack, sounded, along with the charming scream of Miss 2B. Ah, master, if you don't fight like this, you're a rogue. Covering the slap print, Miss 2B looked at Locke with shame and anger, tears rolling in her eyes. Seeing this, Locke could not laugh or cry. It's over, it's time to play. Made Miss 2B cry. He knew that Miss 2B was deliberately letting him go just now, so he didn't have full firepower himself. But even so, the strength of his slap is quite terrifying. Fortunately, the person he shot is Miss 2B, who is equipped with a permanent energy furnace. If it were anyone else, this would probably fall apart. But this short fight has already let him know how strong he is. Chi Wang's good code after he transforms, Miss 2B should not be his opponent. As for how many 2B sisters can be defeated, it's hard to say. Now is not the time to think about it. After all, I made my robot wife cry. He's a husband who has to be coaxed no matter what. Immediately faded out of the transformation state. Locke returned to his normal appearance. His body and appearance were almost perfect and impeccable. She walked to Miss 2B with a tender smile on her face, raised her hand and gently wiped away the tears from the corner of her eyes. Okay, I'm joking with you. Such a big man, crying and crying, in what manner? Come and laugh. Locke smiled and stroked Miss 2B's pretty face, and then gave Miss 2B a smile with his hand. Suddenly, Miss 2B pouted, sucked her high nose, and said coquettishly. I hate it, how can you beat people like this? It hurts a lot. Okay. I'm not the commander's sister, I like that kind of tune. Hee, good, I know, from now on I will only hit commander's sister, I will never hit you, okay. At this time, the commander's sister walked in front of the two with an elegant catwalk. Looking at Locke with all kinds of style, her slender neck was slightly raised, and her long golden hair fell like a waterfall, falling on her lower waist. The body pulled out a charming curve, looked at Locke, and said softly, come on, hit. In the dark night, the Bear Country is freezing, the temperature is close to -20 degrees. In this extreme cold weather, sipping vodka slowly around the fire is the best choice. In a dilapidated house in the slum, a burly man with a muscular horned dragon was drinking vodka. Beside his desk is a simple workbench on which various mechanical components are densely placed, giving it a cyberpunk feel. News clippings about Iron Man hang on the wall next to the workbench. People who didn't know thought the rough man was a Tony Stark fan. But that's not the case. There was news about Tony Stark on the TV not far away. Actually, I am Iron Man. On the TV screen, Tony Stark looked at the camera with a pretentious expression and said. Seeing such a scene, the man's eyes were full of hatred. The vodka bottle in his hand flew straight out and hit the TV heavily. There was a bang, the TV exploded, and shards of glass were scattered all over the place, as if foreshadowing Tony Stark's end. I will kill you, the man said fiercely, his eyes full of bloodthirsty killing intent. At this moment, the door knocked, and the man's face showed a hint of curiosity. On this big night, it was freezing cold again. Who would come to find himself, a poor fool? Go to the door and look out through the cat's eyes. Just as his eyes approached the cat's eyes, a look of astonishment appeared on his face. Even though his half-drunk body was still extremely agile, he quickly retreated towards the rear. At this moment, a fist with black gloves smashed the man's door with a bang, revealing the face of a middle-aged man wearing glasses. "Mr. Ivan Vanke, you are indeed here," the middle-aged man outside the door said with a faint smile, and with a slight push, the broken door opened. "Who are you?" Looking at the guy in front of him who broke into his room without permission, Ivan Vanke's face was full of doubts and anger. "My door is broken, I have to spend money to fix it tomorrow, but I still have extra money in my pocket." This man, raising his hand to hold a hammer on the workbench, a ruthless expression appeared on his face. Dare to break into his own place, no matter who he is, he will send it to hell. Watching him pick up the hammer, the man with glasses on the opposite side raised his hand to him with a smile. There was an additional business card in his hand, and with a slight wave, the business card landed on Ivan Vanke's workbench. While the man pulled a chair and sat down, he took out a box of expensive cigarettes from his pocket. With a calm face, he pulled out one, stuffed it into his mouth, and ignited it quickly. In fact, he had quit smoking for a long time before that. The main reason was that his primary doctor told him that he was no longer fit to smoke if he didn't want to die early. He definitely doesn't want to die early. Life is wonderful, but there is still a lot to do. But sometimes God's will is hard to resist, and the more you don't want it, the more it wants to get you. There was nothing he could do about it. But since a month ago, he took the mysterious potion that Master Locke threw to him. All this has changed, his body has become younger again, and the original underlying diseases have all disappeared. Not only that, his body is as strong as a bull. Even when he was young, he couldn't compare to him. Now every night, a hot blonde girl sleeps beside his bed. Otherwise, he would not be able to sleep at all when he was so energetic. Yes, this man with glasses is none other. It is Justin Hammer, the chairman of Hammer Industries, which was wholly owned by Locke. And the man holding the hammer at this moment is the scientist of Beishang Kingdom, Ivan Vanke, whom Locke sent him to look for. Ivan Vanke's name may be unfamiliar to everyone. But when it comes to the Iron Man 2 event, we have to mention Whippo, and Ivan Vanke is the real name of Whippo. However, there is no such person yet, and now there is only Ivan Vanke in front of him. Ivan Vanke is a technical genius, his father is Anton Vanke. Years ago, he was exiled by Tony Stark's father, Howard Bacb de Stark, because he wanted to use Tesseract for ill-gotten gains. After Anton died of hatred, Ivan Vanke, his son, vowed to bring down the Stark family and kill Tony Stark to avenge his father. He is the only person other than Tony Stark who knows arc reactor technology. Not only that, but relying on his smart brain, he also increased the speed of the boat reactor, allowing it to release more powerful power. Among Tony Stark's many enemies, he is a villain with both strength and mind. Introduce myself. My name is Justin Hammer, head of Hammer Industries. It is also one of Master Locke's subordinates. The purpose of coming to you is very simple, that is, to take you out of here to see the young master. By the way, the one on the table is the arc reactor you made. Justin swallowed the clouds, his eyes locked on a glowing ring on the workbench, and a surprised expression appeared on his face. Before taking this task, his young master Locke had already mentioned the information about this Ivan Vanke to him. Among them is the guy in front of him, who can independently manufacture the small arc reactor of Stark Industries. When he heard Locke's words, his first reaction was disbelief. After all, arc reactor is the core technology of Stark Industry, and it is the top priority. Especially now that the Stark Industry has begun to develop towards clean energy, the arc reactor technology is the treasure of the Stark Industry. In this case, how could they possibly leak it out and let outsiders know about it? But at this moment when he really saw a small arc reactor in this small room, his heart could not help but set off a huge wave. As expected of the young master, what he said was actually correct. This is simply incredible. Master Locke, who is it? Ivan Vanke asked curiously. You'll know when you go there. Hammer didn't answer directly, and sold it off. What if I say no? Ivan Vanke held the palm of the hammer and couldn't help but tighten it. Hee, I don't think you have any reason to refuse. Look at your poor place, are you willing to live? If you promise to come with me, you will not only be able to live in a good house. I can also give you a chance to get revenge on Tony Stark, and you can kill that bully king. Hearing Justin's words, Ivan Vanke was stunned for a moment, and the hammer that was about to be smashed continued to stay in his hands. Really? Ignoring Ivan Vanke's question, Justin pressed the cigarette butt in his hand directly on the table. Get up and walk towards the door. Take your parrot, my helicopter is waiting outside. Hearing Hammer's words, Ivan Vanke was shocked. How could this guy even know this? But now is not the time to be shocked, looking at Hammer who is leaving quickly. After hesitation, he finally chose to keep up. He took the small arc reactor that had been built in his parrot, and he went out to Rockefeller Manor at night. In the study, as usual, Locke sat quietly at the desk alone, writing something quietly. The rustling sound came from the friction between the pen and the paper, which made Locke feel extra comfortable, and his heart was like still water. On the notebook in front of him is still his plan for this period of time. Plan 1. Hulk Serum, Abomination, Blue. Plan 2. Unmanned Mechanical Armor, Ivan Vanke, New Elements. Plan 3. True. Adamantium Recipe. Plan 4. Build an army of millions of anti-gravity auxiliary robots. Plan 5. Get a lot of vibranium necessary to hack Wakanda. Plan 6. Continued expansion of Yoba's forces. Yoba Correspondent 60. Yoba Correspondent, the red-haired twins, made by Deborah and Popolo. In Locke's notebook, a dozen plans were listed. The ultimate goal of each plan is to continuously increase Locke's power. I am very satisfied and put a tick on the back of Plan 1, which means the plan is executed perfectly. Plan 2 and Plan 3 are already on the way to completion. Plan 4 has been achieved, it seems that it is time to implement Plan 5. Locke muttered to himself while looking at the list of plans in front of him. Immediately after that, a tick was put on the back of Plan 4, Million Anti-Gravity Auxiliary Robot Corps. In the past half a month, under the efforts of the commander's elder sister, Hammer Industries has established a number of production lines, and the manufacturing speed of anti-gravity assisted robots has been increased several times. Just yesterday, the army of millions of auxiliary robots that Locke had always hoped for was officially completed. This means that Locke's armed forces have entered another level, one that is enough to threaten the security of an entire country with its own power. Now that the goal has been achieved, the next thing to do is to use this as a lever to move things that could not be moved before. And this thing, for Locke, is the most technologically advanced Wakanda on the planet. Definitely, if Wakanda is willing to negotiate with herself and give herself what she wants, then everything is fine, and this invasion doesn't have to happen. However, if they do not agree and give shame to their face, then they will only be overwhelmed by their own robot army. Gently closing the notebook in his hand, Locke leaned back slightly on the chair, closed his eyes and looked enjoying. Reaching out his hand, he gently grabbed Miss 2B's tender and slender hand under the desk, and pulled her down in front of him. Okay, it's getting late, let's go back to the room to rest. Commander's sister is still waiting for us, Locke said softly. Wiping the saliva from the corner of her mouth, Miss 2B smiled charmingly, but shook her head and continued to press Locke on the chair. It's quiet in the study, I like to stay here, let's go back later. After all, like a cat, he sat in Locke's arms. Locke smiled wryly and shook his head. This robot wife is really getting more and more outrageous. It's okay to disturb me when I'm doing my work, but now I even want to monopolize the rest time. This will be discovered by the commander's sister, and he will inevitably be complained. But at this moment, there was a knock on the door, and then the commander's elder sister came in with a cup of fruit tea. It seems that she has long guessed that Miss 2B will do things in the study that are not supposed to be done in the study. The commander's sister smiled and put the fruit tea in her hand gently on the desk. I just said, why did you stay in the study for so long today? It turns out that teacher 2B is teaching the young master. With a somewhat embarrassed smile, Locke explained, Sister Commander, listen to my sophistry. Bah, it's an explanation, the course tutoring has just begun. Giggle, the class may have just started, but the preparations for the class should have been done for a long time. After all, our 2B teacher is very serious about tutoring homework. Commander's sister looked at Miss 2B and said teasingly. Hearing this, Miss 2B looked at the commander with a blushing look, and said, "It's not as exaggerated as you said, it's just a little bit of preparation before class. The young master has been working just now, and I dare not disturb him. It's really just started, but I'm going a little faster, it shouldn't be long before it's over. At that time, you will continue to tutor other courses." "Well, I can have this." The commander's sister smiled charmingly, she was really charming. He picked up the fruit tea, walked to Locke's side, and fed the fruit tea to Locke himself. The night is gone, the dawn is coming. Soon, the sky brightened. Get up and take a shower. As usual, head downstairs to the playground and start running. Although his body is now as powerful as a monster. However, good living habits still have to be maintained continuously, which is a matter of attitude and willpower. As usual, Mo, who is in his 80s, also got up early and started to warm up. The reason why Locke keeps the habit of running every day is because of Lao Mo. After all, an old man in his 80s can keep on running every day, and it would be too embarrassing for him as a teenager if he can't keep going. And when I think that old men in their 80s are just like young guys, they still have the happiness of men. The more he felt that running couldn't be sloppy, imagine that when he was in his 70s and 80s, he could easily and skillfully operate Miss 2B. Isn't that scene exciting and inspiring? Not to mention other things, just for this goal, he felt that it was necessary to continue to persevere. "Master, I woke up very early today. Young people are in good health. Envy." Lao Mo ran to Locke's side and said jokingly while raising his legs in place. "It's not as early as you are a dead old man, I suspect that you sleep in the playground every day. No matter what time I get up, you are already up." Locke said speechlessly, looking at Lao Mo. "Hee, the elderly don't sleep very well, they sleep lightly, and I wake up whenever there is any trouble. I don't know what happened last night, but I always felt a wild cat meowing loudly, did you hear it, young master?" Lao Mo looked at Locke jokingly and asked. Locke blankly glanced at Lao Mo, shook his head, and said, "No, I slept soundly and didn't hear anything." "Yes, then the old servant may have heard it wrong, tisk tisk, I'm getting old, and even my ears are not good." After all, Lao Mo ran out like a cheetah. Looking at such a scene, Locke could not wait to kill this dead old man. "Your uncle, is this the running speed you should have when you were old?" Noontime, Rockefeller Manor, welcomed 2 guests. They are Justin Hammer and Ivan Vanke with a birdcage. In the living room, Locke crossed Erlang's legs and quietly looked at Ivan Vanke in front of him. As rough as imagined, it is hard to imagine that such a guy is a genius-level scientist. If he met him on the road and said he was a brick mover in the construction site, or a gangster, he would have no doubts. This sturdy arm, sculpting dragons and phoenixes, is completely like a gangster, and I am afraid. You are the one who wants to see me. Justin, are you joking? Looking at the young Locke in front of him, Ivan Vanke's face was full of sneer. Apparently, he was ashamed and angry that Justin Hammer brought him to meet an underage. He is really down and out now, but not to the point of being played by others. But just after he finished speaking, his head came into a close contact with the floor. I saw Justin Hammer rubbing Ivan Vanke's head on the ground with his right hand. How many times have I said that after seeing the young master, be polite to Lao Su, you don't have a long memory. Lao Su has endured your bad temper for a long time. Since taking the medicine Locke gave him, Justin Hammer has become a different person, acting resolutely and violently. However, the reverence for Locke has reached an incomparable level. In his heart, young Master Locke is his idol in this life. Therefore, the most unbearable thing for him is the disrespect of others to the young master. If it wasn't for Ivan Vanke, who the young master was looking for, he would have to break his head. Looking at Justin's performance, Locke and the 2 ladies beside her smiled and found it very interesting. In the original timeline, Justin was also very shrewd and ambitious. But his personality still tends to be indecisive, lacking domineering. But now Justin Hammer has changed, he is so domineering. For such Justin, he loves it. Men, especially men who want to make a little career, must be domineering. Okay, just teach a lesson. Locke said lightly. Yes, young master. Justin nodded respectfully and pulled the somewhat dizzy Ivan Vanke back to his seat. At this moment, Ivan Vanke's mentality has undergone earth-shaking changes, and he is shocked. Just because of his own words, Justin Hammer, who was beside him, taught himself this thunderous method. And he clearly felt Justin's killing intent just now. He really wanted to kill himself. Because he said something unkind to the young man in front of him, he was about to kill himself. Obviously, the status of this young man in his heart is absolutely detached. After getting along all the way, he knew that Justin Hammer's weight in the field of military industry, it is not an exaggeration to say that he is a giant-level figure. At this moment, such a giant-level figure is so respectful to the young man in front of him. If so, how could he not be surprised? Who is this 14-year-old boy? Chapter 91. I am not holy, I am your future boss. Just when Ivan Vanke wondered who Locke was in front of him, a sudden voice suddenly appeared in Ivan Vanke's mind. Immediately, Ivan Vanke was struck by lightning, and the whole person froze in place, looking at the young man sitting on the throne not far away with an unbelievable expression. The voice in my head just now was made by the young man in front of me. Speak directly in your own head. How can that be? Why is it impossible? Is your vision limited to this? If so, then you are so disappointing to me. Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. Ivan Vanke looked at Locke's eyes from shock to panic. It was the first time he had experienced this kind of scalp-tingling fear when he grew so big. The young man in front of him was incredible and unbelievable, which was completely beyond his imagination. The understanding of this world built up over 30 years of growth collapsed at this moment, and my body couldn't help shaking. How did he know that today's Locke is already the tip of the planet's pyramids? Mad God Potion not only strengthened his physical body and mutated his cells, but also strengthened his brain to a terrifying level. Today, in addition to his extraordinary intelligence, he also possesses Dr. Stern's telepathy ability, and his strength is far superior to that of Dr. Stern. At most, Dr. Stern is sensing, to understand a little bit of the other party's thoughts. But Locke can not only sense, but also control. For an ordinary human like Ivan Vanke, he can easily invade his brain, read his memory, and even manipulate him. Such an ability is very similar to Mutant's Professor X, but after all, it is only an ability attached to him, which can be stronger than Dr. Stern. But if you really want to compare it with Professor X, it's still a lot worse. At least with his current ability using mind control ability, he can only read and control one person at most. And the other party must be the kind of ordinary person. If he has been strengthened, it will be very difficult. But as the saying goes, little is better than nothing. Although the ability is limited, it is better than nothing. At critical moments, this ability can still play a big role, especially when fighting against experts of the same level. To know that the masters make a move, winning or losing is a matter of millimeters. Just imagine, when the two peak masters are engrossed in the duel. Suddenly such a mental attack, the result is absolutely cool. But even so, Locke's performance at this moment is shocking in Ivan Vanke's heart. This is not something normal human beings can do at all. He finally understood why Justin Hammer, the giant in the military industry around him, was so in awe of this young man. Not to mention the family background of the young man in front of him, this terrifying ability alone is enough to make people surrender. Immediately, his gaze towards Locke became completely different. In addition to the fear just now, there was also a trace of awe like Hammer's. Seeing such a change in him, Locke nodded with satisfaction. In any world, respect is earned by one's own strength, not by others' charity. This is why Locke used the mind manipulation ability in front of Ivan Vanke. I know what plans you have in your heart. I agree with your plans with both hands, and I will give you the help you deserve, but the premise is that you surrender. Locke looked at Ivan Vanke calmly and said that on his left and right sides, Miss 2B and the commander's sister sat next to each other, like an emperor embracing left and right. He is naturally clear about the revenge plan that Ivan Vanke has always wanted to do. This is also one of the big events of the future, and it is with him that the Iron Man 2 plotline unfolds. Whether it's because of his dislike for Tony Stark, or for Locke's more system points, he has enough reasons to help Ivan Vanke. Definitely, his so-called help is only to provide resources for him to build unmanned mechanical armor. After all, Ivan Vanke's unmanned mechanical armor still has two brushes. In terms of cooperative operations, at present, apart from his anti-gravity auxiliary robot, I am afraid that no one can outperform him. Unless the later Ultron robot army is infested. And this is why Locke wants to recruit Ivan Vanke, combining his unmanned mechanical armor with his own artificial intelligence GS. The combat power that can be exerted is no less than his anti-gravity auxiliary robot army. At that time, the two armies will fight together. The troops are divided into two groups. What kind of threat cannot be pushed horizontally? Locke is now bent on playing the riots, and in the near future, there will be one threat after another. And he was looking forward to it. Definitely. As for whether Ivan Vanke can kill Tony Stark with his own help, it depends on his own ability. Hearing Locke's words, Ivan Vanke, who still had a little hesitation when he came again, now has no hesitation at all. Not to mention other things, just because of the strong sense of oppression that Locke brought him, he had to surrender at the feet of the young man in front of him. Otherwise, he would never doubt that the young man in front of him would kill him directly. And he can't die right now. He wants revenge on Tony Stark. I am willing to surrender. Ivan Vanke nodded and said. Very good. Locke smiled and called Laumo in. Give him a code name, send him a few sets of uniforms, and throw him to the new base. Didn't you always say that the establishment of a space base requires a lot of manpower? This guy can build unmanned mechanical armor, and then let him build you 100 or 80, and give you a shot. Locke thought for a while and said. Really? How dare you? Our base has just been established, and you want to keep it secret, young master. Therefore, we are extraordinarily strict in personnel recruitment, and we need to conduct a series of assessments. There is really no way to find enough personnel in a short period of time. If this gentleman can really build a large number of humanoid robots, it will really help us a lot. Laumo said excitedly. In fact, building a humanoid robot is not too difficult for Locke. However, it was quite time-consuming, and he was already exhausted by the two teachers taking turns to help him with his homework every day. Where is there time and energy to study what Coolie Robots .0? Studying a few more problem-solving postures is a bit of a stretch. Old Yi, is there any problem with you? Locke glanced at Ivan Vanke and said. Suddenly being called Roar by Locke, Ivan Vanke felt flattered. Calling Roar so affectionately, it is obvious that the other party has regarded him as his own. So, of course, he was very happy. Nodding his head, he patted the chest of the carved dragon and painted phoenix. No problem, I will not disappoint the young master. Well, that's good. By the way, come to me later and wear work clothes. You are covered in tattoos, and those who don't know you think you are the boss here. Locke rolled Ivan Vanke's eyes and said. Ivan Vanko. Hearing Locke's words, Ivan Vanke couldn't help but think of his mother's efforts to prevent him from getting tattoos. Sure enough, if you don't listen to the old man's words, you will suffer in front of you. Tattoos can sometimes really affect the future. Okay, there's nothing else to do, just step back. I'm going to rest. Locke waved his hands to a few hands as if he was in the morning. But at this moment, Justin, who had been sitting quietly, stood up anxiously. Master, can the unmanned mechanical armor built by Ivan Vanke send me some? I use it for exhibitions and to promote our hammer industries. Locke smiled. How could he not see what Justin was thinking? During this time, Tony Stark has become popular all over the world because of the steel armor he built, and there are countless pretenders. This naturally makes Justin, who is a competitor, very unhappy. If you don't join Locke's gang, bah, it's a team, that's all. Now that he was one of Locke's men, he couldn't watch Tony Stark dominate. So, whatever he says, he wants to steal Iron Man's limelight and pretend to be himself. And now that the opportunity has come, he naturally doesn't want to let it go. Don't worry, you will have the opportunity to act forcefully. I'm afraid you won't act well, but don't blame me for being rude. Locke said lightly. Master, I wasn't very good before, but now with your guidance, I will pretend to force my skills to increase greatly, and I won't let you down. Justin complimented. What do you mean? I instruct you to pretend to be coercive. Do you believe that I will beat you to death? Hey, I believe it. Justin smiled meanly, and hurriedly pulled Ivan Vanke away. Suddenly, in the huge living room, there was Locke and his two wives under him. Looking at the cheap Justin, Locke looked at 2B and the commander beside him, a little curious. Am I good at pretending? Do you want to tell the truth? Miss 2B said with a smile. What do you say? Hee, it's really good at pretending. It's natural to pretend. Sister Commander, do you feel the same way? Hey, what's the matter, young master, emo? In fact, you don't need to think too much, you are a man, and it is normal to love drilling. Commander's big sister, as expected of her tall stature, the understanding of words is still a joke. Locke and Miss 2B gave a thumbs up to the commander's sister, and called out their admiration. Sister Commander is right, after all, I'm a man, so it's normal to pretend, unlike you don't need to pretend. Is it interesting for the two of you to play such low-level fun homophonic stocks? Miss 2B said speechlessly. It's really not interesting, why don't you drill? Are you addicted to playing? Believe it or not, the commander's sister and I will bite you to death. Scared. After the three were joking for a while in the living room, Locke's personal cell phone rang. Looking at the call, it was Gwen. They haven't seen each other for almost half a month since their last date. First of all, Locke was really busy with his research on Mad God's potion during this time, let alone going out on a date. Even if I can't eat hot food at home, I just take a couple of bites and go back to work. With the completion of the Mad God potion, he now finally has a little free time of his own. Looking at the notes on Locke's mobile phone, the sweetheart said that Roar, Miss 2B and Miss Commander were jealous at the same time. Little sweetheart, it's disgusting to call Roar, Miss 2B said with a displeased face. Although Miss 2B is a robot wife created by Locke, she already has normal human emotions. In this way, she will naturally feel unhappy. As for the commander's elder sister, it goes without saying that she is an artificial human with emotions. So when the two of them saw the notes on Locke's phone, they were naturally jealous. Seeing this, Locke smiled embarrassedly, and said, Gwen and I are young and ignorant, love, very pure, you two don't need to be jealous, right? Let your wife not eat your own vinegar, what do you think? Aren't we enough to satisfy you? The commander's elder sister pinched Locke's waist and said angrily. That's right, big radish, I'm ignoring you. Miss 2B pouted, and was going to leave Roar in anger. However, he was grabbed by the commander's sister. You can't ignore him at this time. If you ignore him, won't you let him succeed? What does your sister mean? After all, Gwen is the young master's first love, we certainly can't stop it, but before he goes on a date, hee. The commander's elder sister raised her eyebrows at Locke, and then brushed her blonde hair, revealing a charming gesture, the meaning is self-evident. Seeing this, Locke felt bad, and quickly raised his hand to surrender, saying, Gwen and I are really just pure love, and there will be no mess. I don't believe it. Big Sister Commander shook her head and said. I don't believe it either. Miss 2B also showed an evil smile. You can go on a date if you want, but in order not to delay your later studies. Today, we must finish all the homework for this week and clear the question bank. Otherwise, you won't even want to walk out of this door today. What, do all the homework for the next week in one day today? Two teachers, if you want me to die, you don't need to be so troublesome, just kill me. Master, what are you talking about? Why are we willing to let you die? If you die, who will we help with your homework in the future? That's right, young master, don't talk nonsense, we are all here for your own good, we must finish all the homework today. This week's list of questions must be cleared. While talking, Miss 2B and Sister Commander dragged Locke into the room. When Locke's last finger also left the door frame that he was pulling, the vast sea of questions came towards him, and the waves were turbulent, drowning him. San Francisco, in the dark of night, a spacecraft belonging to the private research organization Life Foundation is crashing from outer space towards the Earth. In the spaceship command room of the Life Foundation headquarters, a group of staff members stared at the monitor in front of them with extremely nervous expressions. The monitor shows what's going on inside the spacecraft, but at the moment it's terrifyingly silent in the camera. A headless corpse fell sideways or diagonally in the huge spaceship lounge, looking extremely frightening. A group of people in the command room sucked in the cold air and felt their scalp tingle. Boss, the spaceship has no tendency to slow down at all. At this speed, once it falls, the spaceship will blow up directly, and all the creatures inside will die. The designer of the spaceship looked at a young man beside him with a solemn expression and said, "This man is the general director of the Life Foundation, Dr. Drake. He has been working to create a new life form that surpasses human beings. Unlike other scientists, he did not focus on the original gene pool of the Earth. Instead, he cast his eyes on the vast and boundless universe. Just a few months ago, their spacecraft encountered an unknown creature in outer space. Through the study of this alien creature, Dr. Drake made a surprising discovery. This is a symbiotic life that needs to be parasitized on other organisms to survive. Because of this characteristic, he had the idea of combining human and symbiotic organisms. So, before the spacecraft returned to Earth, he had people arrange a combination experiment. But the result was shocking, and the combination of the two failed. What is frightening is that the symbiote will also eat the object that fails to bond. It is precisely because of this that the entire spacecraft encountered a bad news, and all the members of the spacecraft died under the swallowing of the symbiotic life. In this way, there is a scene in front of you, the spacecraft automatically cruises back to the Earth with the spacecraft. However, because the hesitation was not controlled when it was in contact with the atmosphere, it caused severe turbulence, the hull was severely damaged, and now it is possible to crash. It's all a group of monsters from outer space, even if they die. A woman said weakly. But just as she finished speaking, a heavy slap slapped his face. Shut up. This is the most important property of our foundation now and in the future, and no one can hurt them. Immediately let the task force go to the rescue. No matter what the cost, I must rescue the symbiote creature inside. Otherwise, someone will go to your grave to worship tomorrow. Yes, I'll do it now. The woman nodded in horror and ran out quickly. At this moment, a security officer in a black suit came to Dr. Drake's side. Boss, the female reporter from the morning is still waiting for you at the door. Do you need to meet her? A look of displeasure appeared on Drake's face. Woman, is he a candy cane? Didn't he have an exclusive interview? Dr. Drake said viciously. Boss, this female reporter has an unusual background. She said that the interview in the morning was too official. This is not what she wants. She wants to do a follow-up shoot to record your whole day. No interest, let her go. Drake didn't take the female reporter outside to heart. Now the only thing he cares about is the skyship that is falling down at extreme speed. The symbiotic creature inside is his treasure, and there must be no accident. Calculate the crash address of the spaceship, send personnel to go there immediately, and be sure to get ahead of the police. In a very luxurious sky restaurant in San Francisco, Locke, wearing a black suit, was looking at Gwen in front of him tenderly. Being stared at him so much, Gwen's face couldn't help blushing and burning hot. Since sitting down, your eyes haven't taken your eyes off of me. Do I look so good? The young and beautiful Gwen said shyly. It's beautiful, it's so beautiful, you're like the most beautiful star in the night sky. As Locke said, he raised his hand and pointed to the night sky outside. The place where they are at the moment, which is the highest Western restaurant in San Francisco. Located on top of a 100-story building, the consumption here is amazing. However, for a rich boy like Locke who drove Gwen across the city to eat dinner on a private jet overnight, the restaurant's consumption was drizzling. The young and ignorant Gwen could not bear the provocation of the old driver Locke, and immediately became shy, and his body had a strange reaction. Being able to tease Gwen to this point through words shows how profound the skills of the old driver Locke are. But before Gwen continued to hear Locke's praise, a generous gift came out of Locke's mouth. I saw a fiery red meteor suddenly appeared in the sky where Locke raised his hand. Definitely, it looked like a meteor, but under Locke's amazing vision, he could see at a glance that it was a spaceship. And it's a spaceship built by their planet. Nines, turn on the satellite monitoring system and see which force's spaceship it is. Locke gave the artificial intelligence Nines an order relying on his brainwave consciousness. Okay, Mr. Locke, the monitoring system is being called, the positioning is completed, the camera is pulled in, the logo is found, the Life Foundation. The electronic sound of Nines kept ringing in Locke's mind. When he finally heard the words, Life Foundation, a look of interest appeared on Locke's face. Before that, he already knew that the Marvel world he was in was not simply the Marvel movie world. Rather, it's a Marvel world with a mix of various timelines, and through Nine's exploration, it's now clear that this is the timeline of Venom that emerged. Share the body, it's interesting. Locke smiled and said to Gwen in front of him, "I'll go to the toilet and come back soon." Saying that, he quickly left without waiting for Gwen to react. Looking at Locke, who left in a hurry, although she was curious, she didn't ask much. A man who can protect himself with his body in times of danger, what else can't you trust him? Gwen thinks so. At this moment, the location of the restaurant is on the 100th floor of the building. Instead of going down, he went to a higher floor, and soon he reached the top floor. Because the floor was too high, standing on the edge of the balcony, he could clearly feel the howling wind from roar. On the second date with Gwen, and encountering this kind of thing again, it's really rare. But I'll be back soon. Muttering to himself, Locke smiled, jumped up, and went straight from the jump from a 100-story building. Locke, who has the ability to release terrifying heat energy, can now control the release of energy at will, so flight is completely a piece of cake for him. There was a ferocious eruption of energy that was not too hot under his feet, and Locke's speed instantly exceeded the speed of sound. A terrifying sonic boom suddenly sounded, like a thunderous thunder, terrifying the people below. But when they looked up, Locke had already disappeared. Time back to 10 minutes ago, downstairs of the Life Foundation building. A woman in a black helmet and a black jockey's uniform pulled up to the door in a Harley-Davidson. After dealing with the security guards for a long time and still unable to enter the building, she decided not to enter by conventional means. Parked the motorcycle on the edge of a high fence, sprinted, stepped on the motorcycle seat, and took advantage of a backflip, and the woman came in smoothly. A wall of this height can't stop me. A smug smile appeared on the beautiful woman's face. If Locke was here at this moment, he would be able to recognize who this woman was. This person was Selena Kyle, who met Locke in Central Park in New York and exchanged cars. However, the two have not seen each other since the last time they met. Actually, Selena, Kyle wanted to go to find Locke and return the car to him. However, on the second day of the exchange of cars, she received an assignment from the company and came to San Francisco. It's been almost a month since she was so busy with work every day that she really had no spare time or energy to call Locke. And she came to San Francisco mainly to interview a young PhD in biology named Drake. But it was on that day that she also received a call for help from a little girl living in a slum. The little girl described that her best little sister had suddenly disappeared. On the eve of the little sister's disappearance, she received a trial drug flyer from an organization called the Life Foundation. The Life Foundation, Selena knew it, was the #1 pharmaceutical company in their country. Specializing in the production of special drugs for some rare diseases, the effect is very good. Because of this, Dr. Drake, the general director of the Life Foundation, received their country's Outstanding Youth Award last year. A veritable successful person, and still young and promising. Coupled with his handsome appearance, he once became the most feminine man after Tony Stark. The addition of these halos made Dr. Drake particularly eye-catching. The public loved to see him, and the media naturally loved to photograph him. So her employer, the New York Times, specially sent her, a beautiful reporter, to interview Dr. Drake. It was on this day that she received the call for help. So for the Life Foundation, she has great doubts about the almost perfect Drake on the screen. But after this guy was interviewed on his own routine, he never wanted to say a word to her again. As for her proposal to lure homeless people to participate in the drug test, she did not even mention it. In the end, she was very arrogant and kicked her out of the Life Foundation building. It was from that day that she had love with this guy named Drake. Her intuition as a woman always felt that Dr. Drake was a sanctimonious hypocrite. There must be some hidden secrets behind him waiting for her to reveal. As a reporter, she likes to do such things to expose evil. He crept through a patch of grass and sneaked into the building like a cat. I have to say, at the moment Selena is like a Catwoman in the 600th world, her agility is not something that ordinary people can do. This is because she practiced dancing since she was a child, and then she loved fighting. Although she looks like a fairy, she is an uncompromising beauty. But her personality is carefree, Very like a boy, and she is indeed like a boy and likes hot-blooded things. This can be seen from the fact that she likes to ride Harley Davidsons. Probing all the way down the stairs, she soon came to the window of the spaceship command room. Because her movements were so light that no one noticed. Therefore, the conversations in the room were clearly heard by her, and all of them were recorded by her using a tape recorder. The crash site will be in the jungle in the southwest. At this moment, the researchers in the room had already calculated the location of the spacecraft's crash. Listening to the voice in the room, Selena's face was full of curiosity. Because she didn't know at the moment that a spaceship was falling rapidly towards the Earth. She didn't speak, she continued to turn on the recorder and listened quietly, but at this moment, her phone suddenly vibrated. Although she set the phone to silent mode in advance, but in such a quiet environment at the moment. It's just a little bit of vibration, but it's still very clear. Immediately, Dr. Drake in the command room looked at the window with vigilance. Who, hearing the voice of Dr. Drake inside, Selena secretly said that it was not good. Without any hesitation, she turned around and planned to rush downstairs quickly. But before she could rush out, a big hand grabbed her tightly, lifted her up high, and smashed her heavily on the ground. It turned out that she was so focused just now that she didn't realize that a tall black-clothed security guard was approaching behind her. Being hit so hard, she only felt that her body was about to fall apart, and she didn't resist ability at all. Then, like a little chicken, she was mentioned to Drake by the security guard in black. Looking at Selena in front of him, a sneer appeared on Dr. Drake's face. Reporter Kyle, is that why you're a well-known reporter? By wiretapping. He took the voice recorder in Selena's hand and smashed it on the ground. The voice recorder turned into pieces. Do you know how serious your behavior is, eavesdropping on our company's secrets, but you will be imprisoned for many years. Dr. Drake looked at Selena with a sneer and said, if I hadn't sneaked in, how could I have heard so much exciting news? Dr. Drake, you really are a beast with a human face and a beast heart. The homeless people who have been missing recently are also the work of your Life Foundation, right? Selena said sarcastically. Hee, do you have any evidence? Drake spread his hands and mocked at the recorder that was smashed to pieces on the ground. Don't be too proud, I will always find it. Selena said coldly, her eyes full of determination. But hearing her words, Dr. Drake smiled and said, unfortunately, you have no future. What do you want to do? Hearing Drake's words, Selena's face couldn't help but show panic. No matter how brave she was before, when she really encountered danger, it was inevitable to be afraid and worried. You'll know what to do in a moment, take her to meet our imminent gods, I want her to be the first sacrifice. Drake said viciously, looking at Selena's eyes full of viciousness. Yes, the tall black-clothed security guard nodded and carried Selena out of the room. Soon, a group of Life Foundation came to the place where the spaceship was about to fall. Not long after, there was a loud bang, and huge amounts of spaceship smashed into the jungle. Because a task force installed a speed reducer on the ship. Therefore, the complete disintegration of the spaceship as predicted at the beginning did not occur. Although the spaceship has suffered heavy damage now, at least the hull still has some complete space. In this way, it also ensures that the symbiont creatures inside have the possibility of surviving. Hurry up, such a big movement, not only the police will be alarmed. Those special agency guys will follow, we have to move things out sooner. Yes, hearing Drake's words, a group of mercenaries nodded and moved quickly, good for the king. Looking at the mysterious action, Selena's face was full of curiosity as she looked at Drake in front of her. What the hell are you doing? You are breaking the law. When a new life form is created, the whole world will change, and the law is just a piece of waste paper. Don't you want to know what we are doing? Now it's time to show you. Drake grabbed Selena and took her into the spaceship. Then his eyes stopped at Ray on a woman's body. I know you are there, this is the sacrifice I gave you. Go back with us, I will definitely find a way to keep you going. Drake said to the female corpse, as if he was bargaining with an old friend. At this moment, a mass of black fluid material slowly emerged from the female body, looking very Liao people. This black fluid substance seemed to have understood Dr. Drake's words, made an unpleasant cry, and rushed towards Selena. What? Screams came out of Selena's mouth, but soon there was no sound. Locke's flight was fast, but even so, he still didn't arrive before the spacecraft fell. When he arrived, the spacecraft had already fallen, and the people of the Life Foundation had arrived. Looking at the busyness of a group of people from the Life Foundation, Locke walked towards the wreckage of the spacecraft with a hint of interest in the corner of his mouth. But before he could get close, several mercenaries armed with firearms came to him. "What are you doing? This is the blockade area, get out now." A mercenary veteran reprimanded Locke in a cold voice. And Locke didn't seem to hear it, just glanced at him, and mind control ability suddenly broke out. Immediately, I saw that the veteran quickly took out the pistol from his waist and thumped a few mercenaries around him. Looking at the scene that suddenly happened in front of him, the mercenary who shot him looked at his uncontrollable hand in horror as if he couldn't believe it. At this moment, his hand was raised again involuntarily, and then he held the pistol to his chin. "The next time you talk to someone, remember to use the word please." Locke smiled slightly. Bang! The gunshot sounded again, and the hired veteran fell in a pool of blood. The sudden sound of gunfire immediately caught the attention of Dr. Drake in the wreckage of the spacecraft. Glancing at Selena, who was still struggling on the ground, Dr. Drake winked at the tall man beside him. "Go and see what's going on. If there is a conspiracy, kill it," Drake said with a sullen look. Symbiote life is his key to unlocking a new life form. No one can beat their attention. If there is, then he can only send it to hell in advance. All the guys who go against their Life Foundation should be killed. Yes. The tall man in a black suit nodded and ran quickly in the direction of the gunshots with a few heavily armed task force members. Soon, they saw a man walking towards them leisurely. The man's face was solemn, and his years of experience in the industry made him realize that the man in front of him was not a good person. Looking at the few companions who had fallen in a pool of blood, the man's face was grim, and without saying a word, he immediately ordered to fire. Immediately, the muzzle of the gun spit out a tongue of flame, and in the dark night drew a picture of a beautiful spark. Bullets swept across Locke like raindrops, as if to beat him into a hornet's nest. Seeing this, Locke was expressionless and continued to walk forward unhurriedly. A terrifying high temperature erupted from his body, and everything around him immediately burned and melted. The same is true of the bullets, before they hit Locke's body. When approaching the place 1 meter away from Locke's body, it disappeared directly, it was vaporized. The terrifying high temperature energy swept out, and immediately enveloped several men, and then, there was no more. Just a moment. A few men didn't even have ashes left, and they just vaporized and disappeared. Precisely control his high temperature energy, after easily killing a group of people. Locke quickly retracted it again, as if nothing had happened. And although it was only a short-term high temperature, it still made a group of Life Foundation people in the wreckage of the spacecraft feel incredible. What happened just now? Why did the temperature suddenly increase so much? It feels like standing by the fire. Why are the members of the task force silent? There was a gunshot BACB just now. Several people from the Life Foundation looked at each other and said. And when Drake, who was naturally vigilant, turned his eyes, there was a bad premonition. "Take these loaded symbiotes and get out of the back. No one can stop our plan, let's go." Without the slightest hesitation, Dr. Drake grabbed the experimental subject Selena Kyle, who was still struggling on the ground. While ordering other members to quickly evacuate from the rear, the sooner they have to leave here, the better. But at this moment, Selena, who was being held by him, suddenly struggled violently, and then her body was completely covered by a layer of black fluid substance. Then when Dr. Drake reacted, a tall and enchanting black monster appeared in front of him. Looking at the monster in front of him, Drake's face was full of excitement and excitement. The conclusion is successful, and the result is actually successful, ha 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 ha. A brand new life form, this is a brand new life form. Drake looked at the monster in front of him with excitement, and praised him sincerely. He had always dreamed of creating a life that was completely different from human beings, and he never thought that it would be completed under such circumstances. Drake's hand stroked the black monster in front of him, as if he was stroking his newborn child. However, this child of his seems to be very ill-tempered, and his hand just touched the black monster. The black monster raised his hand and slapped him heavily. The powerful force immediately smashed his fan upside down and smashed into the jungle not far away, and he didn't know if he was dead or alive. Looking at such a terrifying monster, the other researchers from the Life Foundation looked horrified. Without further ado, he carried the rest of the symbiote and ran towards the place where Dr. Drake smashed it. The black monster did not pursue the victory, but raised his palm to look left and right as if he couldn't believe it. What the hell happened to me? Why did I become such a ghost? I don't. A pleasant female voice came from the black monster's body. Listen carefully, this is the voice of Selena Kyle. Oh, female venom. Interesting. At this moment, Locke's figure appeared at the entrance of the spaceship. In his impression, the Life Foundation is an institution that studies symbionts. Both Eddie and Dr. Drake will be hosts for the symbiote, one becomes Venom and one becomes Riot. It's just that the scene in front of him is a bit unexpected. The world he lives in doesn't seem to go that way. The Venom that reporter Eddie turned into did not appear, but a female Venom appeared. That's kind of interesting. Tall body, enchanting figure, bulging forward and backward. Not only does it not feel disgusting, why does it feel strangely exciting? Locke looked at the female Venom in front of him in amazement, and couldn't help but make up some images of children in his mind. It was over, and it seemed that he was helpless. The enhanced super soldier serum has already amplified the characteristics of his ISP a lot. Now the Mad God potion seems to have magnified his feature without limit. It's all close to the point of cross-species. Your uncle's brother, you have to restrain yourself. Locke couldn't help laughing at the thought, but at this moment, the female Venom seemed very excited after seeing him, and rushed towards him without saying a word. Locke was stunned. His face was not very good, and he was already trying to restrain himself. You brought it to the door yourself, is this the meaning of begging for gone? That being the case, if it doesn't satisfy you, it's not justified. Looking at the oncoming female Venom, there was a hint of playfulness on the corner of Locke's mouth. He clenched his fist tightly and planned to punch the female Venom. But what he didn't expect was that before his fists were blasted out, female Venom hurriedly made a stop gesture to him. At the same time, a pleasant and familiar voice came from the female Venom's body. Mr. Locke, it's me. Selena Kyle. Quote ? Anne Hathaway, the one you said I looked like Anne Hathaway. We met before and exchanged sports cars, remember? Selena said anxiously. The sudden change to this ugly appearance made her panic, and a strange female voice kept ringing in her mind. What a strong and attractive body. I like this guy, I know you like this guy too, so what are you waiting for? Marry him. The female voice in my head is constantly bewitching. Quote ? Selena, Kyle, shut up, who the hell are you? Get out of my body. Selena said to herself in front of Locke as if she had lost her mind. Looking at the female Venom in front of her, listening to the slightly familiar voice. Suddenly, a figure with an enchanting figure and a beautiful face appeared in Locke's mind. This figure is none other than Selena Kyle, who had met in Central Park in New York before. Not only did they meet once, Locke also specifically investigated her. I know that the woman in front of me is a special correspondent who can fight against injustice. So, reporter Eddie has become this cool-looking and beautiful reporter Selena. Interesting, really more and more interesting. When I think of Selena's figure, and when I look at the female Venom in front of me, I can't help but feel even more energetic. Good guy, I definitely remember, but how did you become like this? Locke said with a smile, looking at the female Venom in front of him. I don't know what to do now. I need help, I don't want to be like this, there's a strange voice in my head talking, damn it, she's manipulating my body. While Selena was talking, she slowly approached Locke, and suddenly hugged Locke. At the same time, the venom on the head disappeared and the body disappeared, revealing a beautiful face, and kissed Locke. Locke, who had some ideas, was taken aback for a moment, and he hugged him unexpectedly. Selena didn't expect things to turn out like this, the voice in her mind actually controlled her to do this kind of thing. At this moment, Locke discovered that the symbiotes originally possessed by Selena's body had all rushed towards his body. Clearly, the symbiote wants to become his new host. It seems that my body, which has been strengthened by the Mad God's medicine, is very popular with the common body. However, as far as the shared body is concerned, it has no effect at all, and he naturally does not want to let it parasitize. I advise you to think about it better. Parasitic on me, you will die. Locke sneered, raised his hand and grabbed it, directly pinching the black symbiote in the palm of his hand. At the same time, a terrifying high-temperature energy was released from his body. Immediately, the black body screamed in horror. As we all know, the nemesis of symbiotes is high-temperature and high-frequency sound waves. This is equivalent to their Achilles heel. There is no cure. I was wrong. I don't dare anymore. Please let me go. A terrified cry came from Gongshan's mouth. Looking at the black symbiote in her hand, Selena, who turned back into a human form, frowned, but pleaded, "This thing just saved me, so please forgive her." "Are you sure? This thing needs a host to survive, or it won't take long to die. Are you still willing to let it parasitize on you?" Locke said playfully, looking at Selena, who was still with him and you just now. Hearing Locke's words, Selena's face showed a clear expression of resistance. But at this moment, with a bang, a spear-like thing pierced through her body in an instant. He looked down at his abdomen as if he couldn't believe it, and blood gushed out. Selena immediately fell into Locke's arms as her legs weakened. The sudden scene also surprised Locke. Before he could figure out what was going on, an unusually tall figure jumped out of the jungle. "That is another symbiote that has worked with humans, Riot. Put me on Selena, now only I can save her." Female Venom almost begged, "Without the host, it will die. It doesn't want to die, and now for it, Selena in front of it is its best host, and it absolutely does not dare to fight the idea of this man in front of it. Moreover, this body with terrifying high temperature is its nemesis at all, and looking for him to parasitize is really looking for death." Hearing the symbiote's words, Locke nodded silently. It was indeed right. The only thing that can save Selena now is the symbiote in front of him. Without hesitation, he raised his hand and gently placed the female Venom's body on Selena's body. Immediately, the symbiote quickly immersed in Selena's body and perfectly combined with her. Selena, who was already dying, immediately opened her eyes and was resurrected with blood. She seemed to be unable to believe that she was looking at her body turning into a monster again, but this time there was less resistance and more gratitude in her eyes. He directly pulled out the long spear in his abdomen, and then fiercely shot towards the Riot in the distance. But it was easily caught by the Riot. "Ha ha ha, is this what it feels like to be a brand new life form? Cool, really cool. Starting today, you low-level species will crawl under my feet," Riot said arrogantly. Just like a beast, it rushed towards Locke and Selena. Seeing this, Selena immediately wanted to fight, but was gently pulled by Locke, and then pressed her behind him. "It's just that your man is not here, he's already by your side now. Where do you still need to take action? Let me do it, even if it's to repay the buddy we just made." Locke smiled lightly and stepped forward lightly. Hearing Locke's words, Selena's beautiful eyes flowed, her face flushed crimson. The scene just now was vivid in her eyes, and she unconsciously licked her mouth, leaving a lingering fragrance. Very good memories. But at this level, she shouldn't be called his woman. This bad guy is obviously taking advantage of himself. However, the feeling of being taken advantage of by this man is not bad. On the contrary, there is a little sweetness. While she was still thinking about it, the man in front of her had already walked towards the Riot. Looking at such a scene, her face was full of surprise, and she knew the feeling of being parasitized by her body. Powerful, more powerful than ever. It is simply not comparable to normal human beings. But the man in front of him was so confident, as if he didn't take the Riot in his eyes at all. A burst of arrogance, the domineering arrogance of the world burst out, making her mind agitated. This man is so cool. I think it's cool too, but I don't like him anymore. His body is too strong for me to touch. But you are human, you can develop a wonderful relationship with him. This guy is very strong and definitely suitable for you. Female Venom's voice resounded in Selena's mind, constantly giving her anlilock. The brief confrontation just now made her clearly understand what kind of terrifying existence Locke was in front of her. In fact, it is only itself. It absolutely does not want to have any contact with him. But since it came to a new planet, it felt that it still needed to find a strong backer. If this host of his own can do something with the man in front of him, then his future days will be guaranteed. Not to mention other things, just the riot in front of him is the boss of their symbiote, with an abnormally brutal nature. It is also very difficult to deal with, not to mention other symbiotes. Once everyone is out, it will not have a good time. So it is imperative to find a strong backer, and Locke is a good choice. Hearing the female Venom's words, Selena couldn't help rolling her eyes and said speechlessly, "What are you thinking? I just met him once. What kind of relationship is not in love? It's too early to say." "Is it early? Seeing how intoxicated you were just now, I don't think it's early at all." Female Venom teased. "Get out of my body quickly," Selena said angrily. "The more embarrassed you are, the more it shows that you are guilty. Human woman, listen to me, obey him," Female Venom said. Selena. While Selena and Venom were still arguing, Locke was not far from the riot. "Oh, it seems that there is a guy who is not afraid of death." Riot's long tongue fluttered wildly, and said with a sneer. Hearing the words of the riot, Locke smiled, nodded, and said, "You are right, there is indeed a guy who is not afraid of death. However, it's you. If I guessed correctly, you should call it a riot, right?" Quote exclamation mark quote. A look of surprise appeared on the face of the riot. He didn't expect that the guy in front of him actually knew his name. And their symbiotes have just arrived on this planet. Except for the people from the Life Foundation, no one has seen them, and it is even more impossible to know their names. 0 for flowers. But listening to the man in front of him, he seemed to have known him for a long time. So, he was naturally shocked. "This kind of thing is incredible. You said just now that you want us all to crawl under your feet. Drink like this after a few dishes." Locke sneered, twisted his arms slightly, and made a warm-up action. His face was full of relief. Seeing him like this, the riot could not help rage. "Provocation, this is blatant provocation. You wanna die." Rage roared angrily, and his body turned into an afterimage and rushed in front of Locke. The black giant fist as big as a casserole with a shocking power, swept the wind and slammed fiercely towards Locke's facade. This is his full blow, he has absolute confidence, and he will smash the man in front of him into meat pie with one punch. The imagination is beautiful, but the reality is extremely cruel. His proud punch was not a fart in Locke's eyes. He raised his hand to block it lightly and took it down easily, but Locke's body remained motionless. How is this possible? The eyes of the rioters almost burst open, their hearts are horrified, and their eyes are full of disbelief. He punched with all his strength, but was caught by the man in front of him so lightly. "Is this your strength? All I can say is, rubbish," Locke said mockingly, his eyes full of disdain. As the leader of the symbiote team, how has the riot ever suffered such humiliation? As if not believing, he kept punching towards Locke crazily. But every one of his punches was easily taken by Locke. In the end, the riot was out of breath, and Locke was still calm, even sleepy. Are you finished? Quote quote. "Don't talk. Then, it's my turn." Locke frowned, and a gleam flashed in his eyes. The clenched fist slammed out seemingly unremarkable. A terrifying heat wave swept out, swallowing up the riots in the blink of an eye. Under the double blow of Locke's giant force and high-temperature heat wave, the riot sent out a shrill scream of fear. However, the scream only sounded for a moment. The body exploded directly, and together with Dr. Drake, it turned into steam and disappeared without a trace. One punch, instant kill. Such a scene, staring at the female Venom behind her. Plop. The body can't help but kneel down, that's frightened. Suddenly, my heart is full of surprise. The information they had before about the Earth was very different from what they were seeing now. They are afraid that they have come to a fake Earth. After the riot was easily killed with one punch. Locke turned his head with a smile, his body as tall as a mountain pulled out a majestic shadow on the ground. Awesomeness. His eyes stayed on the female Venom. "Woman, should you roar for your man?" "Beautiful." Selena thought so, but her heart was agitated. This man, really, very good, very energetic. After killing the riot with one punch, Locke came to the place where Dr. Drake just smashed. The things he imagined were not left, just a few empty glass bottles. The symbiotes inside had disappeared, apparently letting them escape. Shaking his head, "It doesn't matter. Although the symbiote can bring good strength to the host, the defect of this thing is too great. Fear of high-temperature flames and high-frequency sound waves. Once their weakness is discovered, they can precisely strike against this weakness, and it is hard to prevent. Unless it can be modified on the basis of the original to cancel this weakness, or reduce it, Locke really doesn't have much interest in the symbiote. If you have to research. He couldn't help but move his gaze to Selena behind him again, showing a wicked smile. Looking at Locke, who suddenly looked at him with a wicked smile, Selena had a bad premonition in her heart. Sure enough, at this moment, the man stepped in front of her, and then pressed her to the tree trunk behind him. The handsome and pretty face is close at hand, and then domineering strikes. After a long time, Locke had already left, leaving Selena alone, panting against the tree trunk, her heart beating wildly. Hearted, fallen. Did I say that he is very strong? Female Venom's voice sounded in Selena's mind. What do you know as an alien, strong or not? I don't know yet. Selena said speechlessly. So you want to know? I'm too lazy to tell you. I'm going home to sleep. With whom? Quote, you better get out of my body. No, I have promised my master just now that I must always protect you. Your master? Who? Lord Locke. I am your host, but you call him the master. Have you reversed the order? Yes, I'm pretty sure. He's the master, and you're the master's wife. Madam, did you say it, or did he say it? Who do you think said that? I want you to get out. Can't get away. Must be fatally guarded. Are you so sloppy on an alien planet? My mouth is far worse than that of Lord Locke. In addition to being poor, he can also crook. Roll. Back to the Sky restaurant. It was already 10 minutes later. Yes, it didn't take much time. It took 1 minute to arrive at the scene and help Selena to kill the riot. The whole process took 2 minutes, and the remaining 7 minutes were spent on Selena. There is also a faint fragrance in the mouth, just like eating nectar, very sweet. Looking at Gwen in front of him, and thinking of the scene just now, I can't help but feel very guilty. Although what happened just now was not deliberately arranged by him, it was obviously not his previous style to leave for 10 minutes at the date time to fool around with other women. If you have to blame it, should it be counted on the enhanced super soldier potion, or the mad god potion? Locke thought with a guilty conscience. In fact, he himself knew that he couldn't blame anything. He can only blame himself, like all of UISP, for being a simple lecher. It seems that my name is a big radish. I'm afraid I'm going to live up to it. With a wry smile in my heart, I don't want to think about it anymore. It's a matter of men and women, and I want to be yours. Sorry, I'm late. To express my apologies, shall we go to the movies tonight? Locke looked at Gwen with a gentle look on his face and said that what happened just now is really a little unpleasant. If you don't make up for it, you will feel uneasy. Giggle. What's wrong with you? You suddenly said you want to go to the movies, and you look like you're thinking about it again, and you're doing something that's sorry for me. Gwen smiled slyly and stared into Locke's eyes, as if trying to see through his mind. Locke was stunned, feeling guilty of being a thief, drumming in his heart, and really didn't want to deceive his beautiful first-love girlfriend. He decided to explain honestly and said, actually, I just went out too. Before he could finish speaking, Gwen's slender fingers like green onion pressed Locke's mouth. With a smile on his face, he shook his head and said, Shish, that's your private matter, don't say it. I believe that no matter what, you have your reasons. Hearing Gwen's words, Locke was stunned and moved. With such a girlfriend, what more could a husband want? Come on, get your fill and go to the movies tonight. Gwen laughed happily, constantly stuffing steak into Locke's mouth. Locke refuses to come and feasts. Satisfied, the two came to the private cinema and hugged each other, without any other messy movements. Just quietly enjoying the happy time with just the two of them. Very simple, very pure love. But the simpler and purer it is, the more precious it becomes. 3 days later, after a storm swept New York, everything was wet. Standing quietly by the window of the study, a gust of autumn wind blows, the leaves are flying, and the maid downstairs starts cleaning quickly. The picture is very beautiful. 0. At this moment, at the gate of the manor, a military jeep slowly stopped. A man in a military uniform was holding a black suitcase in both hands, looking very tired. It seems that the contents inside are not light. Under the leadership of Lao Mo, he walked in. In the quiet reception hall, Locke sat quietly on the throne as usual. On both sides behind him, Miss 2B and Sister Commander stood on the left and right, each with one arm, and massaged carefully. Right in front of Locke, that is, on the opposite sofa, a man in a military uniform sat there with a restrained expression. "So, I brought everything I want?" Locke asked quietly, looking at the colonel in front of him. Nodding his head, he said, "Yes, Master Locke, we have found the formula for adamantium you were looking for. All of these things were sealed by Colonel Stryker and kept in the vault of our national defense. It took me a long time to find them. Not only did I find the recipe, but I also found some adamantium that I didn't use that year, and I brought them all with me." "Very well, go back and prepare well, you may be promoted," Locke said with a smile, looking at the colonel in front of him. The colonel's face was ecstatic, and he nodded excitedly. As he expected, with the boss, he would be able to make a fortune. "Okay, Mo, see off. Oh, by the way, put $1 million in his account, well done, the prize." Hearing Locke's words 2.1, the colonel was so excited that he almost knelt on the ground and called Locke's father. "Now I am not only about to be promoted, but also to make a fortune, 1 million. That's 1 million, how many years do you need to work hard to earn it?" Now the young master in front of him has made himself soaring. This feeling is just flying off with joy. Seeing the colonel who left happily, a smile appeared on Locke's face. The happiness of ordinary people is really simple. Slowly got up and came to the black suitcase. Opened up and there was a chunk of adamantium inside. Lift your hand to pick it up easily. Adamantium, which is heavy for ordinary people, is nothing in Locke's hands. "So, our little sister A2 is coming." A look of anticipation appeared on Locke's face. "Yoba harem, bah, it's the Yoba army, and it looks like they're going to join a new member." Time flies, and before you know it, another week has passed. This week is the same as any previous research experiment. Locke continued to sleep and eat, study hard, and spend all his time on building Miss A2. If you have to describe how hard Locke worked, to put it simply, Locke changed the frequency of doing homework several times a day to one a day, and you can imagine how determined he was. Even learning such an important thing can reduce the frequency, reduce the number of times, or even stop it at all. It is conceivable how high his enthusiasm for Miss A2 is. However, in the eyes of Miss 2B and Big Sister Commander, his performance like this is a proper love of the new and the old. Some are reluctant to follow Locke's side, although the development and growth of Yoba's troops is one of the commander's elder sister's plans. However, when she thought that these members of the Yokoba Corps would become her competitors in the future, she still felt that she was a little too reckless at the beginning and did not think clearly. However, the ghost knows that Locke will be so excessive, and he will build the Yoba army as his own harem. This is no one else. Looking at the extremely loved body in the training warehouse in front of him, like a goddess, Rao is also a woman. Commander and 2B are not only speechless. As expected of the young Master Locke, even if he reduced the number of homework by 10 times, he would have to build Miss A2. With this figure and appearance, she is absolutely unbelievable. "I finally know why, young master, you are willing to leave our gentle township to create her. It is indeed beautiful and fierce," Miss 2B said with a blank look at Locke, who was beside her. Giggle. It seems that 2B is a little resentful. "Do you blame the young master for not making you a little fiercer?" The commander's elder sister raised her chest and said proudly. Her imposing arrogance is directly proportional to her figure, even Miss A2 can't compare with her. "Cut, I have enough use, what do you want to be so fierce? I am a fighting robot, too fierce to affect the display of strength, now it is just right." "It's best if you can think so. After all, it's better to think a little bit," Miss Commander Nyen said with a half-smile. Miss 2B. Listening to Miss 2B's daily jokes with the commander, Locke smiled and didn't care. After taking a deep breath and using adamantium and the optimized Hulk serum for 7 days, it was time for Miss 2 to be born. A piece of code was entered on the control interface of the cultivation tank. Immediately, the same electronic synthesis sound as when activating Miss 2B and Big Sister Commander sounded in the laboratory. Activation program is starting. The memory import is successful, the emotion module is successfully generated, and the personality emotion generation is completed. In the physical structure examination, everything is normal, and the physical function test is in progress. The test is completed. The result: the flesh contains adamantium particles, has a nearly immortal body, and can repair any injury to the body in an instant. The muscle strength is abnormally strong. The program cannot detect the strength temporarily, and the strength is unknown. Discover the active gene layer, which contains gamma rays, and the combat power will become stronger because of anger. The wake-up procedure is starting. The startup is successful, and it is about to wake up. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Listening to the continuous sound of the electronic synthesis, Miss 2B, and the big sister of the commander, looked at Locke beside him with surprise on their faces. Master, you actually used Hulk serum for Miss A2, do you want her to turn into a terrifying monster? The commander's sister looked at Locke incredulously and said, Yeah, young master, you're starting to get bored of us. Does this mean you plan to open a tank? Miss 2B looked at Locke with a chilly look on her face and said, Your uncle, you only drive a tank. In your eyes, am I such a horrible person? Locke said speechlessly, I really don't know what's in Miss 2B's mind. But what he didn't expect was that after hearing his words, Miss 2B and the commander's big sister nodded in unison. Isn't it, Locke? I'm too lazy to care about you. Now you guys are hardened, and you already know that I'm talking back to the young master. But it doesn't matter, I don't mind, now I have 2 little sisters, just wait and cry. At that time, I will deliberately be biased, and I only love Miss A2, and I will kill you. What will you do? Locke said with a provocative expression. But for his provocation, the 2 ladies didn't take it to heart at all. Instead, he sneered, What else can I do? I'm definitely pushing behind you. After all, it's not easy to drive a tank well. You 2 are screwed, Locke said, and rushed towards 2B and the commander. Suddenly, the 3 of them fought together like naughty children. Every day, there are 2 wives of national beauty and Tianxiang who accompany him to play, and life has a different taste. At the same time, the sound of successful activation sounded from the A2's cultivation warehouse. Immediately, the culture medium began to be quickly emptied, and then with a click, the glass door of the culture chamber opened automatically. With the opening of the glass door, Miss A2, who had closed her eyes originally, slowly opened her eyes like she was sleeping. Suddenly, a pair of beautiful light blue eyes appeared in front of everyone. Her eyes seemed to be able to speak, and they were extraordinarily charming, yet so cold and glamorous. Coupled with her yellowish white hair, the temperament of an iceberg beauty burst into bloom. The cool beauty of A2 is completely different from the active and clingy beauty of Miss 2B and the mature and charming beauty of Sister Commander. As I said before, no one is the best, but they are all the best experiences. Lazily stretched her waist, and her beautiful body revealed enchanting and love that could not be seen in static state. Lifting his legs and striding, he was graceful and good, and came to Locke. Master, Eula type a number 2 report, please advise. Lang Yan's character has no unnecessary nonsense, and goes straight to the topic. Looking at the stunning stunner in front of him, Locke couldn't help gulping down his saliva, and he was so beautiful that he was talking about the woman in front of him. You did a good job today. You can't help but don't move. It seems that classmate Locke is worthy of praise from the teachers. At this time, Miss 2B also came to Locke with a catwalk and said with a smile. He didn't move, but deep down he was afraid that he had already completed several sets of examination papers. The mature and charming commander sister also came over with a smile. Not only that, she also brought her own clothes to Miss A2. A2 welcomes you to join the team. From now on, we will fight side by side. The commander looked at A2 seriously and said, I can't ask for it. A2 with a cold personality nodded and said, Hee, Sister A2, it seems that you didn't hear the meaning of the words of the commander's elder sister. Her so-called fighting side by side is not just about fighting. Miss 2B looked at A2 meaningfully and said. But to the surprise of Miss 2B, A2 smiled indifferently and said to herself, I definitely know that in my memory, there are already scenes of fighting with the 2 sisters, I am familiar. Quote. Hearing A2's words, Miss 2B and the commander looked at Locke beside them with disbelief, as if they wanted him to give them an explanation. Locke smiled awkwardly, and said, I have already entered things like initial memory. That being the case, it is reasonable for me to include the heroic achievements of the two ladies as well. Is there a problem? There is definitely no problem, right? To you a big fool, let's see if we can't kill you today. The two became angry, their long skirts fluttered, and their sleeves fluttered towards Locke. Seeing this, Locke was startled and ran away, but before he could start, the two youngest sisters who were closest to him grabbed him. Fight, but I can't be without me. Good guy, Miss A2 is hiding. Seeing that Miss A2 shot and caught Locke, 2B and the commander were surprised, but they were ecstatic. What is called cocooning oneself, now it is. Sister A2, you are great, grab him, you mustn't let him leave here standing up today, it's too much, I won't let you down. Please forgive me. Oh, it's too late. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.